Well, good afternoon. I'd hope to start in about 1 minute. If you could take your seats, please. Well, welcome back, everyone. We should resume our session. I'll hand over to the Secretariat for a few announcements before we get back into our main agenda. Secretariat.
Thank you very much. First, there's another CRP available. It is CRP 30.5 on the conservation implications of animal culture and social complexity. In the morning session, we received 2 questions. The first concerning the way comments are incorporated into the CRP documents and consistent with past practice and the ruling of our chair, the NGO comments are incorporated into the CRPs in the same way that party comments are incorporated, provided that they first introduce those comments in session. The second question related to the Secretariat's interpretation of or how we view the phrase subject to the availability of external resources. And it for us simply means that we need to get external funding to engage in that work. In other words, that the core budget does not include funding for that particular action item. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I'm reminded of how significant today is. It's the 14th of February, which is Valentine's Day, a time of closeness and being together. So can I wish you a very happy Valentine's Day. Keep the spirit of Valentine's Day through the rest of the meeting, especially because we have 23 items to cover this afternoon, if we possibly can. What I'd like to do is just draw your attention to many of the items we'll touch on are already being discussed in working groups. So there will be CRPs coming from them. Just in relation to CRPs and how we take the business, if there are no comments on an item or very simple editorial ones, we will take them now and seek your approval. If there are textual changes, then clearly we'll produce a CRP. If there are issues of real substance in there other than just simple text, then we'll refer that back to the working group. When we do that, it would be helpful if you could indicate what the issues are that you're highlighting for the working group to address in particular. The key in all that is please make your interventions to the point, but do make them to cover the issues that you want addressed. And obviously, if you can send any comments in writing to the Secretariat, really as soon as you can after your intervention, that would be extremely helpful. With that, I think we can then move on to the first item this afternoon, which is fish aggregating devices, document 27.1.2 Rev 1, which will be introduced by our COP-appointed councillor for marine pollution. Mark Simmons. Mark, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Happy Valentine's Day and good afternoon, everybody. So we're in agenda item 27.1, and we are considering fish aggregating devices, or FADs, or FAD for short, and we're doing this primarily in the context of marine pollution. The relevant document is Doc 27.1.2 Rev 1. So, as requested by the 5th meeting of the Sessional Committee of the Scientific Council, a document was prepared, an introduction to FADs as a source of marine debris, and this is provided in full in Annex 1. A summary of this and associated draft decisions for adoption are provided in document 27.1.2 Rev 1, the draft decisions being in Annex 2. A FAD is a permanent, semi-permanent, or temporary object, structure, or device of any material, man-made or natural, which is deployed and or tracked and used to aggregate fish for subsequent capture. A FAD can either be anchored, an AFAD, or a drifting FAD, a DFAD. The use of DFADs varies across regions, but in 2013, for example, between 81 and 121,000 DFADs were estimated to be deployed worldwide. They are used extensively in industrial tuna industries. Lost and discarded FADs contribute to marine debris and have negative impacts on marine wildlife, primarily through ingestion and entanglement. Abandoned FADs, for example, can sink or drift onto beaches, coral reefs, mangroves, or other coastal habitats with associated negative impacts. Entanglement in fishing gear adversely affects many CMS-listed species, of course, including marine mammals, sharks, and sea turtles. The individual level effects of interactions with abandoned, lost, or discarded fishing gear include drowning, starvation, malnutrition, physical injury, reduced mobility, enhanced exposure to predators and physiological stress, reduced energy acquisition and assimilation, compromised health and reproductive impairment. In terms of actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to note the report in Annex 1 and adopt the decisions in Annex 2. These include actions for the parties that will improve how FADs are managed and instructions to the Scientific Committee to consider this matter further, the latter including potentially through a case study to be reported back to the next COP. Chairman, the good news here is that this issue has already been considered in the Aquatic Working Group, and so parties and others can already refer to CRP 27.1.2. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I can open the floor for comments. Yes, Ocean Care, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ocean Care would like to emphasise that the draft decisions highlight that fads are a pollution issue, contributing significantly to marine debris. We strongly support further study of fads as a source of marine debris. It has been estimated that approximately 1.6 million fads were abandoned in the Mediterranean Sea between 1961 and 2017. These abandoned fads correspond to an extremely large amount of plastic, concrete blocks, and other litter. A case study looking at the current situation in the Mediterranean would be extremely valuable so that the impact of fads as a source of marine debris can be more fully understood. Such a case study should be done in close collaboration with ACABAMS and the General Fisheries Commission for the Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thank you, Ocean Care. And can we go to Egypt next, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, the issue of fish aggregating devices is of crucial values, and a lot of work has been done. Therefore, we approve the proposed actions, but at the same time, we need to consider what already said by Ocean Care about the case studies in the Mediterranean, especially in relation to very important marine mammals, as well as other, whether fish or turtles. So, yes, indeed, we should join the aquatic working group in a way that we develop the CRB and hope to be approved straight away. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt, once again for your intervention. If there are no other calls for the floor at this point, then there is an existing CRP which we said we would take tomorrow morning along with the other CRPs, so I propose that we retain that plan. So we'll come back to this tomorrow morning. In conclusion, can I thank the appointed councillor for the work that's been done in relation to this issue? Thank you very much. Can we move on then to 27.1.3, which is maltreatment and mutilation of seabirds in fisheries. And this will be introduced by the chair of the Intersessional Working Group, Graham Taylor from New Zealand. So, New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and distinguished delegates. So under agenda item 2713, the Scientific Council for New Zealand wishes to introduce the document 2713, the maltreatment and mutilation of seabirds in fisheries, a report of the CMS Intersessional Working Group. The discussion on this document has taken place at the Aquatic Working Group at the Sessional Committee's 6th meeting. It's also taken place here at COP14. The document includes an annex with draft decisions directed to parties and the Scientific Council. A recent paper published in the journal Biological Conservation provided a disturbing report on the maltreatment and mutilation of migratory seabirds from the South Atlantic region, with injured birds reported washed up dead and occasionally alive on beaches in Brazil, and also, I should add, Uruguay and Argentina. A working group was set up to gauge whether this was a local issue or a new global threat to seabirds. A questionnaire was devised and sent out to seabird ecologists, fisheries managers and other interested parties to collate relevant information on the nature and extent of this new and emerging problem. The information received from the questionnaire approach was quite limited, mainly because I think of the COVID disruptions that occurred around the time it was sent out. However, we did receive reports from people working in seabird breeding colonies. We got reports from NGOs and officials who work as fisheries managers and observers or in animal care centres. There was no evidence of birds carrying these serious bill mutilation injuries observed at any of the breeding colonies, and all reports of mutilated birds only came from the South Atlantic region. However, the maltreatment of seabirds has been observed much more widely, although not to the same extent of damage as was reported through the bill mutilation problem. So it appears that the mutilation problem is a local threat, probably caused by rogue fishers operating in the South Atlantic region, and was particularly near Brazil, which was reported in the biological conservation paper, but potentially could be from fishers working in adjacent countries or on the high seas nearby. Therefore, in terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is asked to take note of this report and to adopt the draft decisions in the annex. Thank you.
Thank you, New Zealand, for that and for your work intercessionally. Could I open the floor for any comments? Yes, Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor, and I thank the Chair of the Working Group for his report on our work yesterday night. Brazil agrees with the conclusions of the working group. In particular, we agree with the conclusion that the problem is confined to a particular region, namely the seas, southern Brazil, or elsewhere in South Atlantic. Therefore, we would like to highlight that the problem identified is not only confined to our country, and also that these have been attributed to a rogue group of fishers. For the sake of time, I will not spend our time here commenting on the many measures and policies the Brazilian government adopts to promote sustainable fishing and curbing harmful practices that are harmful to biodiversity, in particular to prevent the bycatch of seabirds. What we would just like to emphasize is our commitment to promote the sustainability in our country, in all sectors, in fisheries, and our commitment to the decision adopted under this theme. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil, for that. Can I move then to Egypt, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Although this issue deals with a specific area in South Atlantic Ocean, but the issue of seabirds are of crucial importance to many other places, and that's why maybe in the decision we can think about and other areas as well. Secondly, we think it is a very serious matter when you have malnutrition and injuries to these seabirds, and God knows, is this because of the fisher or because of other environmental damage or maybe climate change, God knows. But the issue of seabirds and CMS should be considered further on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt. I don't see any other requests for the floor. I've had a look at the CRP, and there may be a very quick win for us here. The CRP under paragraph 14AA adds a little c, which is report to the Standing Committee at its 56th meeting on any further developments on this issue. So it simply adds the report to the Standing Committee. Assuming that's the only change in the CRP, I do wonder if we could move this to be recommended for adoption. If you're all content. It's a very simple addition, frankly, to the main paper. I see people in agreement. Can we take it then, if I get the right reference? So, document 27.1.3, Rev 2, is adopted. Thank you. Thank you for that. Can we then move on to item 27.2, which is marine pollution and other threats, and specifically 27.2.1, the effects of marine pollution on migratory species. And I think the COP-appointed Councillor for Marine Pollution will introduce this item. COP-appointed Councillor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, so under agenda item 27.2, we are considering document 27.2.1 Rev 2 and its annexes. Marine pollution comes in many forms, visible, invisible, energy in the forms of noise and light, and both natural and wholly unnatural substances. Following the initiation of this work stream at the last COP, and as subsequently requested by the 5th meeting of the Sessional Committee, we prepared a review entitled Migratory Species and Marine Pollution, a Brief Overview of Issues. Document 27.2.1 Rev 2 provides you with a summary of this paper, which is provided in full in Annex 1, and presents draft decisions in Annex 2, as further developed and endorsed at the last meeting of the Sessional Committee. The report provides a brief introduction to the variety of types of marine pollution affecting marine wildlife, with particular reference to marine debris, persistent organic pollutants, and nutrients. And it is intended to help identify potential future work on pollution by the Convention. It also includes an overview of the work conducted to date by CMS on a variety of forms of pollution. It takes note of the work and the focuses of other international bodies that seek to directly manage pollution, and considers how CMS might effectively complement this. The draft decisions before you request parties to do several things, including to better integrate marine pollution into conservation plans for migratory species, and they call on the Scientific Council to look at this issue further, including potentially through a workshop. The Secretariat is requested to support the work described and also to seek enhanced cooperation and coordination with other UN bodies and multilateral environmental agreements working in this sphere. The COP is recommended to take note of the report contained in Annex 1 of this document and adopt the draft decisions contained in Annex 2. And Chairman, again, this has been discussed in the Aquatic Working Group, and the CRP has been posted at 27.2.1. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. Again, if I can open the floor for comment. Yes, Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Australian Government is developing national anthropogenic underwater noise guidelines that will provide guidance. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Thank you, Australia. Don't worry. I'll move on to Egypt and then to Ocean Care, please. Egypt, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Marine debris are one of the, or marine pollution in general, are one of the main biodiversity drivers for biodiversity loss, and therefore all biodiversity-related conventions should deal with this. It's happening for many years, perhaps even some decades. And in spite of all of this, whether at regional or international level, marine pollution is still considered as one of the main drivers of biodiversity loss. We approved the proposed the decision, but we would like to enhance cooperation at national and regional as well. It's not only at the level of Secretariat, but we encourage them to be at national and regional level as well, in a way that we hope that one day we'll be able to have clear and healthy marine environment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt. Ocean Care, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ocean Care strongly supports the proposed comprehensive review of this multifaceted topic area, as this review will help CMS further develop its focus. A workshop looking at the main interfaces between pollution in all its forms and marine migratory wildlife would help with this process, and we would like to see funding made available for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ocean Care. I still have Egypt asking for the floor, but I think that may be historic. So I will carry on if that's the case. Yeah, thank you. I don't see any other... I wonder if Egypt could switch the microphone. Yeah, thank you. I don't see other calls for the floor. There is a CRP on this, but I'm conscious there may be sort of several textual changes in there, so we'll take that tomorrow morning with the other CRPs. But again, thank you to the appointed councillor and those involved in developing this issue. Thank you for that. If we could move on then to item 27.2.2, which is marine noise, and the Secretariat will introduce this. Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. So I would like to introduce document 27.2.2 revision 2 on marine noise. This document was prepared by the Joint Noise Working Group of CMS, ACOBAMS and ASCOBAMS, the Scientific Council and the Secretariat. We have already discussed the document in the Aquatic Working Group, and a CRP is available as of this morning. So some of you have hopefully already had the chance to take a look at that. The document, or the CRP now actually, contains it contains only one part, namely draft decisions proposed for adoption, but the document itself also contains a report of the joint CMS ACOBAMS ASCOBAMS Noise Working Group, which I would like to draw to your attention. So, yes, the Conference of Parties is recommended to note the report of the working group contained in Annex 1 of the document, and to adopt the draft decisions as contained in Annex 2, or now in the CRP 27.2.2, and to delete decisions 13, 58, 59, and 60. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Again, open the floor for comments. Australia, I believe you're very keen to comment on this item.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for the earlier intervention. I was way too enthusiastic. The Australian Government is developing national anthropogenic underwater noise guidelines that will provide guidance on management of underwater noise and impacts to threatened and migratory marine species in Australian waters. The work includes the guidelines, a technical background report that forms the scientific and technical basis of the guidelines, and an update to Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act Policy Statement 2.1, interaction between offshore seismic exploration and whales industry guidelines. The guidelines will consider underwater noise impacts to marine mammals, cetaceans, dugong pinnipeds, marine reptiles, marine turtles and sea snakes, and diving seabirds, penguins and cormorants, and appropriate mitigation measures to reduce the risk of behavioural and physiological disturbance. The guidelines also consider current international and national best practice standards and policies, and will incorporate the most up-to-date information on the effects, management and mitigation of anthropogenic underwater noise developed by international fora such as CMS, CBD, IWC, IMO and the US Navy. The guidelines will be structured with a focus on different types of noise, such as impulsive and non-impulsive, with reference back to individual types of sound sources, activity types such as pile driving, seismic surveys. Finalisation and publication of the guidelines is expected to occur in June 2024. Australia will be happy to share these guidelines when finalised through the Scientific Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Australia. And yes, if I could encourage you to do that, because it's a very keenly watched and interesting area. So thank you. Let me go to the European Union, please.
Thank you, Chair. We are really happy with this CRP. We have just a minor editorial comment in the decision to the Scientific Council, 14cc. In the little point D, we would like to add with before competent national authorities. Thank you.
Thank you, EU. We will take the CRP tomorrow morning in formal sense, but it's helpful to have that change now. Egypt, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Certainly, Egypt commend ACABAMS for the excellent work they have done on underwater noise, and we approved the draft decisions, taking into consideration the previous intervention by Australia on the developing guidelines and mitigation measures. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt, for that. If there are no other requests for the floor, then the CRP is available. There's time for you to review that this evening, and we'll take it formally tomorrow morning. Thank you very much for that. Let's move on then to item 27.2.3, which is vessel strikes, and this will be introduced by the Secretariat. Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, I wish to introduce document 27.2.3/Rev1 on vessel strikes. This document has been prepared by the Secretariat. It has already been discussed in the Aquatic Working Group, and the CRP is available on the COP14 website as CRP 27.2.3. The document contains 3 annexes. Annex 1 contains a draft resolution on reducing the risk of vessel strikes for marine megafauna. Annex 2 contains guidance on reducing the risk of vessel strikes for whale sharks, which is proposed to be annexed to the resolution once adopted. And Annex 3 contains draft decisions on reducing the risk of vessel strikes for marine megafauna. There is also a related information document, InfDoc 27.2.3, which contains a study called Limited Global Ship Strikes on Whale Sharks, Understanding an Increasing Threat to the World's Largest Fish. The document has also an addendum where Scientific Council comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. The document discusses the growing concern over vessel strikes, also known as ship strikes, and their impact on marine megafauna, such as marine mammals, marine turtles, sharks, and rays. Vessel strikes can cause severe injuries and even death to these animals, as they are often unable to detect approaching vessels in time to avoid them. The document also reports on the cooperation between CMS and the International Whaling Commission in addressing the issue of cetaceans, and provides information about the role of the IMO and its instruments to mitigate adverse effects of vessel traffic on marine megafauna. Furthermore, the document informs about an expert assessment undertaken by the Marine Research and Conservation Foundation that investigated the collision risk of whale sharks from ship traffic. The results from this study are provided in the information document that I have mentioned earlier, and which I recommend everybody to read. The German Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety and Consumer Protection has kindly provided the financial resources for the study, which we heartwarmly thank them for. The results from the study formed the basis for the guidance in Annex 2. The draft resolution and draft decisions suggest activities to address the collision risk for marine megafauna arising from vessel traffic in the long term, as well as during the coming triennium. Specific guidance is provided as draft annex to the resolution on measures to reduce the collision risk for whale sharks. The suggested activities would contribute to the implementation of Article 3, Paragraph 4 of the Convention and Resolution 10.15, Rev. COP12, on the Global Program of Work for Cetacean, which calls for the development of thematic resolutions addressing primary threats, one of which is vessel strikes. Therefore, in terms of actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to note the report provided in the information document 27.2.3, adopt the draft resolution contained in Annex 1, including the guidance contained in Annex 2, adopt the draft decisions contained in Annex 1 of this document. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretariat, for that. Again, if I could open the floor while I do that, thank the German government for funding the work underpinning this initiative. So the floor is open if anyone would like to make any comments. There is a CRP, I believe, which we'll take formally tomorrow morning. Yes, Egypt, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Egypt is considered one of the most important shipping routes in the world. More than 12% of the world trade, they go through the Suez Canal, either from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean and opposite. Based on that, we have been observing this kind of strikes for many, many, many years. It's not only whale shark, but even for marine mammals as well. We have even recommended that potentially sensitive areas should be identified and the IMO informed about them. Many sensitive areas might also need to be upgraded in terms of their conservation status. It was further recommended to look at migratory patterns of whale species globally and identify overlap with shipping routes. It was also noted that WWF had published the report under title Protecting Blue Corridor, Challenges and Solutions for Migratory Whales Navigating National and International Seas. Based on that, we strongly recommend the proposed draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Egypt. I'll go to Ocean Care, then Akobams. Ocean Care, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm making this intervention on behalf of IFO, Ocean Care, and WWF. Vessel strikes pose a serious threat to many marine species, including large whales, marine turtles, and whale sharks. In some regions, vessel strikes pose a major threat to the survival of the population, such as sperm whales in the Hellenic Trench off the coast of Greece, fin whales in the northwestern Mediterranean Sea, blue whales off Sri Lanka, Arabian Sea humpback whales, and North Atlantic right whales. We welcome the draft resolution and decision addressing this threat and encourages parties to adopt them with the amendments put forward by the Scientific Council. These emphasize that the most effective measures to reduce ship strikes are to separate marine wildlife from vessels in space and time by moving shipping lanes, and where this is not possible, by reducing vessel speed. Identified IMAs and ISRAs will be extremely beneficial for the identification of areas of high risk of collisions. Addressing vessel strikes in this area, which demonstrates the positive and constructive progress being made due to the close collaboration between the CMS family, International Whaling Commission, the IMO, initiatives by individual parties and stakeholder participation, and the continuation of this close collaboration is essential. We welcome the ship routing measures and speed restrictions already adopted by a number of parties, either through the IMO or national or voluntary measures. We also welcome the declaration of the northwestern Mediterranean Sea as a particular sensitive sea area PSSA by the IMO in July 2023, thanks to the proposal by the governments of France, Italy, Monaco, and Spain, which makes it the world's first PSSA with the objective to reduce the risk of vessel collision with threatened marine species. Now, the necessary associated protective measures need to be put in place by parties to deliver on the objectives of the PSSA, which is to conserve CMS-listed species. There has also been notable progress on ship strike reduction measures in other regions due to voluntary commitments by some major shipping companies, for example, rerouting out of a sperm whale habitat in the Atlantic Trench. Their commitment has already reduced the risk of strikes in that area by around 30%, which is significant, but further risk reduction is needed for their survival. Noting the concerning conservation status of many marine species, we encourage parties to adopt the proposed resolution, guidelines, and decision, and we look forward to close collaboration also with the private sector in reducing the collision risk, which will result in measurable conservation action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ocean Care. I do want to encourage you to focus on the text of the documents. These issues are extremely important nature conservation issues. I do recognise that, but we have documents before us, so if we could focus on the editorial points and the main substantive points, that would be helpful. But thank you for that intervention. Can I go to Kenya, then to ACOBAMS? Kenya, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman. Kenya takes note of the report and supports the adoption of the draft decision of reducing the risks of vessel strikes for marine megafauna. Kenya is a member of the International Maritime Organization and therefore subscribes to safe, secure, and environmentally sound marine affairs within her territorial waters. Kenya signed the International Convention for Regulation of Whaling in 1946 on 1st January 1970 and ratified it on 2nd December 1981 to promote orderly development of the whaling industry that includes cooperation with the International Whaling Commission to achieve a permanent reduction in ship strikes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kenya. And finally, I'll close after ACOBAMS on this item. So ACOBAMS, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. ACOBAMS has a long history in dealing with the ship strikes and finding a way to mitigate this threat within the Mediterranean Sea. My colleague from Ocean Care just presented a couple of the examples that ACOBAMS has been involved with. We just had a side event an hour ago presenting our effort in the Mediterranean Sea, so we can only support and strongly endorse this document. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ACOBAMS. I don't see any other requests for the floor. There is a CRP that we'll come back to and hopefully adopt tomorrow morning, or recommend for adoption tomorrow morning. Thank you for that. Let's move on then to item 27.2.4, which is deep sea mining, and the Secretariat will introduce this item. Secretariat.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Document 27.2.4 on deep sea mining was prepared by the Secretariat. It contains two annexes, draft resolution in Annex 1 and draft decisions in Annex 2. The document also has an addendum where the Scientific Council provides comments and recommendations to the COP. Deep sea mining is an emerging issue the Secretariat is bringing to the attention of COP, and a comparatively new activity predicted to increase due to the growing demand for minerals. The topic was discussed at the fourth meeting of signatories to the CMS Pacific Islands Cetaceans MOU, and the meeting agreed that there was a need to develop comprehensive environmental impact assessment guidance, which considers the effects of deep sea mining on cetaceans. The CMS Secretariat was also requested to raise the issue to relevant global forums. The document describes the potential negative impacts of deep-sea mining on marine migratory species, as well as their habitats and prey. These include environmental, ecological, and physiological impacts, as well as noise and light pollution, which are each elaborated in the document. The impacts of deep-sea mining could be felt far from the seafloor mining site, including at both the surface and in the mid-water zone. Given these wide-ranging potential impacts, such operations are likely to affect migratory marine species. Therefore, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft resolution in Annex 1 and adopt the draft decisions in Annex 2. The Secretariat would also like to note that an information document 27.2.4, letter from the Secretary General of the International Seabed Authority, was submitted to the Secretariat on 2nd February and posted on the COP Inf document section on the meeting page on Monday, 5th of February, at the request of the ISA. But because of this late submission, it doesn't appear in the annotated agenda. The discussion on the document is ongoing in the Aquatic Working Group. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Noting that discussion is ongoing in the Aquatic Working Group is helpful. Can I open the floor for comments at this point? Can I go to Cook Islands, please?
Thank you, Chair, for your excellent leadership through this week, and thank the Secretariat for the meeting documents. The Cook Islands stands firmly in line with the precautionary approach and the principles of UNCLOS. We also fully agree on the need for all parties to enhance monitoring and research efforts to better understand the potential impacts of deep-sea mineral extraction on migratory species. This is aligned with both international conservation measures and with our own domestic legislative regime and practices. The Cook Islands also stands firmly in line with the need to follow a science-based approach to understand environmental impacts. This leads to two key points that we humbly wish to make. Firstly, our understanding is that leading practice for regional environmental management plan is to include a systematic environmental risk assessment of impacts as well as a cumulative impact assessment. These are not referred to in the submission of this document. Secondly, our Cook Islands scientists broadly agree with the findings of the independent expert review conducted by the ISA, that the submitted document has unfortunate shortcomings such that it is not of practical purpose. We also note that there are emerging studies on the impacts of seabed mineral extraction and that significant progress has been made in just the last 9 months since the CMS document was drafted and circulated. We are committed to building, improving, and enhancing our scientific knowledge, and we see this as the key to making responsible, evidence-based decisions. We take note this document needs a lot of work to incorporate a systematic and holistic evaluation of potential impacts for referencing. We fully support the intent that these impacts be studied and better understood, and we believe that this should be part of a regional environmental management plan. Chair, as a country who has declared its whole exclusive economic zone as a multi-purpose marine protected area, we understand the importance of protection of migratory species. Our EEZ is also declared a whale and shark sanctuary, two very important and significant migratory species in our region. We strongly call for continued efforts and genuine partnerships and cooperation to progress discussion in an inclusive and transparent manner. We'll submit our suggested text in writing to the Secretariat. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Cook Islands, for that. I'll then go to Franz, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. As it's the first time we're speaking, I would like to thank the Secretariat and the Chair for the work at this COP, but also for all the intersessional work. I'd also like to thank the government of Uzbekistan for their welcome and the high visibility given to this conference. So all the present and future efforts of the parties are very welcome in awareness raising. We'd like to recall that France is in favor of a ban of deep sea mining, but we are aware that we must concentrate our recommendations in the mandate of CMS, in particular the impacts on migratory species. So strengthening initiatives and scientific knowledge of the effects of this exploitation and working with the International Seabed Authority, and we will participate in the working group on the subject and work on the amendments necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Could I go to Monaco next, please?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. The Principality of Monaco would like to thank the Secretariat for submitting this document and the decisions therein. We have some comments on the document, and we're pleased that the Convention is interested in the work on conserving marine species. We would like the role of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and the work with the International Seabed Authority, which is tasked with the work on mineral exploitation in the seabed. Monaco also recognizes the importance of the scientific data in the drawing up of the efficient protection of the environment and of the seabed. So this recognition to have a need for scientific data, which leads us to adopt in the framework the precautionary approach when it comes to deciding on the steps to be undertaken in terms of activities which could potentially affect the marine environment and in particular marine species. And as has been recalled over recent days, Monaco recognizes the role of CMS as the only international convention specialized in the conservation of migratory species, their habitat and their migratory routes. And so CMS has a major role to play in assisting and providing scientific, reliable data on marine species as a whole and the impacts on them. Monaco also shares the point of view on the issues related to the potential consequences of deep sea mining on marine migratory species, and that this should continue to be studied by CMS within respect of the mandate of other related conventions. Thank you.
Thank you, Monaco, for that. I'm aware there are one or two parties whose microphones seem to be out again, so I have an additional sequence that I'll come to now, which is Brazil, then New Zealand, then Germany. So if I could go to Brazil next, please. Is it working?
It's not working. Oh, now it's. Thank you, Chair. And thank the Secretariat for preparing document 27.2.4 Rev 1. We have already expressed our vision on this document in the working group, but we think that it's important to reiterate here in this Committee of the Whole that Brazil supports the draft resolution and the decisions proposed in Annex 1 and 2 of the document, as well as the comments provided by the Scientific Council. We would like to recall that Brazil firmly supported the adoption of the precautionary pause on all mining activities on international seabed, the so-called area, for 10 years. We would like also to emphasize in this regard that the existing studies on the potential impacts of mining in the area are not sufficient to assess the sustainability of these activities in light of the technical and environmental criteria. For Brazil, the exploitation of minerals on the seabed should not be authorized until sufficient scientific knowledge is available to allow us to assess in a comprehensive manner the compatibility of the activity with the aims of sustainable development in all its aspects. In this regard, we recall the importance of the discussions on the mining code currently under negotiation within the International Seabed Authority. We will engage on the discussions in the working group, trying to contribute constructively in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. On my hard copy list, then, can I go to New Zealand and then Germany, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I feel like I've jumped the queue a little bit here. So I'd like to thank the Secretariat for highlighting this important issue. It's clear to us that deep sea mining does cause negative impacts on migratory species and that more information is needed. In New Zealand's view, CMS has a very important role to play in the deep sea mining space. We see the key value add of CMS is in sharing best available information and expertise on the impacts of deep sea mining on migratory species and their habitats, and sharing this information with ISA, International Seabed Authority, and parties. Ultimately, this will support more robust evidence-based decisions. In this regard, we support the development of EIA guidance by CMS on the impacts of deep sea mining on migratory species, as we believe this will support the work of the ISA for areas beyond national jurisdiction, and potentially it'll support the work of parties domestically. We also support increased synergies between CMS and ISA and avoiding duplication of efforts. New Zealand can support a draft resolution and decision, and we're happy to work with others in the Aquatic Working Group subgroup to finesse the wording. And finally, on a slightly broader note, there was obviously some process issues with this paper, and we really encourage consultation in future where there is another organisation, or in some cases a key range date, with a strong interest in an issue that is being brought to COP for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, New Zealand, for that. I'm conscious of the long list that we have, and also aware that this is in the working group at the moment, so maybe if we can focus our comments down to the key points. Can I go then to Germany, please?
Thank you, Chair. Germany welcomes the draft resolution and decision on deep sea mining. We think it is an important issue that should be addressed by CMS, since there will be impacts on migratory species if deep sea mining activities would take place. Generally on this issue, we would like to stress that Germany will not sponsor any plans of work for exploitation until the deep sea ecosystems and the impacts of deep sea mining have been sufficiently researched, and until there are exploitation regulations with strict environmental standards in place, ensuring that the marine environment is not seriously harmed. Germany insists on the strict application of the precautionary approach and sees the need for a precautionary pause in deep sea mining, facilitating further marine scientific research. We look forward to adopting a strong resolution at this COP. Thank you.
Thank you, Germany. Let me move down the list then that is in front of us. We've got India, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to the Secretariat for sharing this study, and India welcomes this particular recommendations. And In fact, India undertakes deep sea mining and supports such activities only based on scientific study and sustainability principles. But the operative paragraph 3 at page 8 of the document 27.2.4 Rev.1 reflects parties to take a precautionary pause. The information regarding the impacts of deep sea mining is being collected in accordance with the protocols prescribed by the International Seabed Authority, and the decision on the deep sea mining will rest with the administrative bodies of the ISA representing state parties. India would also proceed with such activities in accordance with the provisions of the United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea and a commitment to safeguarding the marine environment utilizing the best available knowledge at the present time. Based on that, we will work in the working group and come out with a document which can be proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. India. Go then to Egypt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, the issue of deep sea mining has been accelerating over the last few years, perhaps the last few decades as well. And that's why we would like to thank the CMS Secretariat and the scientific bodies to provide us with such important documents. We support the draft resolution that urge countries not to engage in any DSM, deep sea mining, until scientific and robust scientific information had been obtained to make informed decision as to whether mining and related activities caused harmful effect to the marine environment and its fauna. Certainly, we thank the workshop or the results, or we appreciate the result of the workshop that already been made, taking into consideration the precautionary approach and preventive measures, which are very, very essential in the preparation of such AIA as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Egypt. Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Australia shares the concerns of others that the impacts of deep seabed mining are not sufficiently understood, including on migratory marine species, their prey, and the ecosystems on which they depend. Australia is committed to upholding our obligations under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, including to protect and preserve the marine environment and biodiversity. We continue to work collaboratively through the International Seabed Authority to achieve consensus on robust rules, regulations, and procedures with strong environmental protections for deep seabed mining in the area. Australia is a member of the Council of the International Seabed Authority. We note the Council has decided that commercial exploitation of the deep seabed beyond national jurisdiction should not be carried out in the absence of agreed rules. Given its mandate to conserve migratory animals and their habitats, CMS can make an important contribution to building the knowledge base of the potential impacts of deep seabed mining on migratory species. We welcome the draft resolution and decision and thank the Secretariat for bringing this matter to the COP. We would like to see text amendments that clarify the distinct mandates of bodies and agreements, task the Scientific Council with undertaking work that will help build the scientific knowledge base of the potential impacts of deep seabed mining on migratory species, and task the relevant CMS bodies to communicate and engage with the International Seabed Authority as appropriate. And we look forward to engaging with others through the contact group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Australia. And if you could take these comments into the group, that would be helpful. I will close the list now after Bahrain. I'm conscious of time and that there is a long list to get through. Also, if observer organisations don't get the floor, could you please submit your comments to the Secretariat and we'll put them in the record of the meeting. With that, can I move to the Netherlands, please?
Thank you, Chair. As this is the first time taking the floor, the Netherlands would like to extend our gratitude to the government of Uzbekistan for your excellent organization and hosting of this COP. Our delegation would like to speak to our national position in relation to this document. We thank the Secretariat for this document, which we feel is timely and urgent, as developments are moving fast and the impact of deep-sea mining on migratory species is nowhere near to be understood. The Netherlands take the view that any future deep-sea mining activities can only take place if clearly demonstrated to be strictly within the capacity of the marine ecosystem, ensuring the continued health and resilience of the oceans and their biodiversity. In this respect, it will be crucial to have adequate and sufficient scientific knowledge about how deep-sea mining affects the marine environment and ecosystem of the deep sea. For CMS, we agree with others in that this document should be focused on migratory marine species, their prey, and the ecosystems on which they depend. We have made some amendments to the draft resolution, and we are happy to discuss this in the working group further. Thank you.
Netherlands, thank you very much. Can I go to Spain, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. And good afternoon to one and all. First of all, I should like to congratulate the Secretariat of the CMS for all of the hard work undertaken to prepare this conference. And I'd also like to thank the government of Uzbekistan for their generous welcome and hospitality. Spain considers that it's necessary to better understand the potential effects of deep-sea mining on migratory marine species, their prey, and the ecosystems on which they depend, in order to ensure that they are not affected and that they are maintained in a favorable conservation status. Before carrying out DSM activities, a precautionary approach should be adopted, and potential impacts of this activity should be considered as regards migratory marine species. Likewise, precautionary measures should be taken to prevent, mitigate, and monitor these impacts in line with the best available scientific information, the precautionary approach, and the ecosystem-based management approach. Spain believes that we should not be undertaking DSM activities until scientific information is sufficiently available and robust in order to inform decision-making and to ensure that this activity can be undertaken without causing harmful effects to the marine migratory species concerned. In this regard, Spain supports Decision 15/24 of the Convention on Biological Diversity, which urges parties and other governments to ensure that the effects of DSM on biodiversity and species are sufficiently investigated and the effects are analyzed in line with UN CLOS and other relevant international standards. To sum up, Spain would advocate a moratorium on DSM. This would mean that the activities could not be undertaken until enough robust scientific information is available and until the risks are better known. In addition, safeguards should be in place to ensure that marine ecosystems are not affected. In this regard, Chair, we are actively participating in the working group discussing the resolution and related decisions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Spain. Let me go now to Norway, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As this is the first time we have the floor, we would like to say a heartfelt thank you to the government of Uzbekistan for the warm welcome. Norway wishes to thank the Secretariat for the work and initiative on this important topic. Norway believes that before any deep-sea mining exploitation activity can take place, whether within or outside national jurisdiction, there is a need for increased knowledge of the marine environment and the potential effects of such activities on the marine environment, here under the marine migratory species. We therefore welcome the focus of the Secretariat on the possible link between DSM activities and effects on marine migratory species, and the initiative from the CMS Secretariat to ensure that this link is sufficiently researched and understood. Norway believes that it's paramount to uphold and respect the competencies and mandates of existing relevant international institutions. We should aim to enforce and support them where necessary through international cooperation and consultation between relevant institutions to share information, and in this way work to ensure that all decision-making regarding ocean-based activities is knowledge-based. We believe the current drafting confuses somewhat the competencies of the different relevant legal institutions, instruments, and organs. And we see that the competence and mandate of the International Seabed Authority should be clarified and precisely referred to. The references to the newly adopted BBNJ agreement should be more precise. The references to the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea needs to be streamlined and correct. We recognize the important role of the CMS, but also see that the suggested responsibilities for CMS in this current draft needs to be more precise and according to its mandates. We have submitted concrete textual suggestions to the draft resolutions and decisions to clarify these issues, and look forward to discussing it further in the working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Norway. Let me go to Samoa next, please. I will close the list after this intervention. So, Samoa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Talafalava, warm greetings from the heart of the Pacific. Distinguished delegates and participants, this is the first time Samoa is taking the floor, and we wish to acknowledge and thank the government of Uzbekistan for its warm hospitality and hosting of COP14. Similarly, acknowledging the Secretariat for all the hard work with the coordination of this COP. We'd also like to congratulate you, Honorable Mr. Chair, for your leadership in chairing this committee. Samoa intervenes to support the draft resolution on deep sea mining. We in Samoa are ocean states, dependent on the ocean and its ecosystems. The biodiversity is sustained and the climate processes to sequester carbon. For this reason, Samoa has taken a precautionary approach, and in 2022, joined the coalition of Pacific states calling for the implementation of a moratorium on deep-sea mining. Furthermore, this proposed resolution and its amendments align to complement and in support of specific integrated management solutions on deep-sea and seabed exploration, as well as protection of endangered migratory species and their habitats, and strengthening of MBA networks, emphasized in the National Samoa Ocean Strategy 2020-2030. Here at COP14, we are acutely aware of the importance of ecological connectivity and the integrity of transboundary habitats and vulnerable ecosystems along the migratory ranges of highly migratory species. We adopted the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework to protect biodiversity, and here we must do no less. Deep-sea mining will be an enormous extraction operation in the Pacific Ocean. Numerous scientists have warned us of the destructions of life on the seabed, in the water column, effects on marine mammals, and on fish. We can only guess at the damage and loss of habitats and species it will bring. And we are mindful of the lack of information and knowledge of the deep sea ecosystem and the processes it would affect. When in 2022, only a handful of states from the Pacific were expressing concerns toward deep sea mining. There are many more states worldwide calling for precaution, as well as scientists and civil society. Samoa would welcome other states to join a pause or moratorium on deep sea mining. As Samoa is concerned about this nascent extraction activity, we strongly support the resolution proposed by the Secretariat and proposed amendments by the Scientific Council on deep sea mining. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Samoa, for that. Let me then go to Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bahrain would like to support the resolution on deep sea mining, along with the other supporting parties, and share the concerns already mentioned. Scientists have warned about the negative impact of the deep sea mining from the destructions of life on the seabed, water column, and marine mammals, as well as the potential effects on habitats and noise pollution. The negative impacts on the marine environments are wide. Therefore, we support the draft resolution and proposed amendments by the scientific councils on deep sea mining. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bahrain. Let me go then to Belgium.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Belgium, like others, would like to thank the Secretariat for this document and consider it an important issue for the conservation of migratory species. We would like to emphasize the fact that the resolution and decision on seabed mining are being considered within the context of the CMS, which has a specific mandate. We therefore would like them to relate directly to migratory species specifically, as well as their prey and their ecosystems, and not to seabed mining in general. To reflect this, we have some specific amendments on the operation of paragraphs 2 and 3, which we will further work on in the working group. In line with CBD COP14 decision 1526, we consider it important to adequately apply the precautionary principle and refrain from engaging in deep-sea mining exploitation until sufficient and robust scientific information has been obtained to make informed decisions as to ensure that all necessary measures are taken to avoid harmful effects to migratory marine species, their prey, and their ecosystems. As it is important to ensure raising awareness on the issue of migratory species, we would finally like to introduce a paragraph in the decision directed to the Secretariat to inform the International Seabed Authority of this COP14 decision so that it can be taken into account in relevant discussions on deep-sea mining in that forum. We look forward to continue working on this important issue over the next days. Thank you.
Thank you, Belgium, for that. Let me go to Costa Rica, please.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to sincerely thank the Secretariat for the preparation of this very relevant draft resolution, annexes and recommendations. Costa Rica welcomes the resolution on all of the implications and indirect and direct threats to marine species and their habitats. We need to ensure that we have the best scientific knowledge in order to ensure sound, evidence-based decision-making, and of course with a precautionary approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica. And then Fiji, please.
Thank you, Chair. As this is the first time Fiji takes the floor, we also wish to extend sincere thanks to the government of Uzbekistan for the warm welcome reception here in the beautiful city of Samarkand. Fiji also thank the CMS Secretariat for their hard work in successfully convening the CMS COP14. Mr. Chair, Fiji makes this intervention to support the resolution on deep-sea mining, in particular its potential impacts on biodiversity and the protection of migratory species and habitats. As a large ocean state, Fiji is dependent on the ocean and its ecosystems for marine resources that sustains livelihood, contribute to economy, and sustains the climate processes. Since 2019, Fiji has adhered to a 10-year moratorium on deep-sea mining to ensure that all risks are considered and decisions are guided by scientific evidence. Here at the CMS COP14, we are acutely aware of the importance of ecological connectivity and the integrity of transboundary habitats, and vulnerable ecosystems along the migratory ranges of highly migratory species. Fiji has adopted and is committed to the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework to protect biodiversity, and soon will be reviewing its biodiversity priority targets and commitment under the GBF Early Action Project. And so, Mr. Chair, we expect no less here at the CMS COP14. Deep sea mining would be an enormous extractive operation in the Pacific Ocean, and numerous scientists have warned us of the destruction of marine life on the seabed, in the water column, and most specifically its effects on marine life and resources. There is not enough known on deep sea mining and a general lack of science to give us the confidence of what lays beneath on the ocean. A precautionary approach ensures the balance between environment, social, and economic impacts of deep sea mining are considered. There needs to be more investment, marine scientific research and development in line with this UN Decade of Ocean Science. There needs to be complementary and synergy on global regimes on oceans and biodiversity. And the ongoing work on draft regulations at the International Seabed Authority and the newly adopted High Seas Treaty regulating biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction must work together with CBD to address deep sea mining as it has cross-cutting impacts. Lastly, Mr. Chair, Fiji supports the draft resolution and the proposed amendments by the Scientific Council on deep sea mining. We thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Fiji, for that. Let me summarize where we are. There seems to be support for the resolution and for the work that's being done in the working group. For observers, if you could let us have your statements, then we'll incorporate them into the record of the meeting, but please take them into the working group as well. There will be a CRP coming back to this. When we have that, then we'll allocate some more time to the issues around there. So I'm conscious the working group are already taking a deep dive into the issues. So if you can allow me that, let's let the working group conclude their work, and then we'll come back to this issue. Thank you very much indeed for that. Can we then move on to item 27.3, which is marine wildlife watching, and I believe the Secretariat will introduce this. Secretariat?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Document 27.3.1 Rev 1 on recreational in-water interactions was prepared by the Secretariat. In summary, the document reports on progress to implement decisions 1366, 1367 and 1368 on marine wildlife watching. It contains 3 annexes. Annex 1 has the draft amendments to Resolution 12.16. Annex 2 contains the guidelines for recreational in-water interactions with marine wildlife, and Annex 3 contains draft decisions. The document also has an addendum where the COP is provided with comments and recommendations from the Scientific Council. The guidelines in Annex 2 are inspired by a precautionary approach and are aimed at eliminating or at least minimizing disturbance and adverse effects where recreational in-water interactions are taking place. The guidelines aim to assist parties in adopting appropriate measures to regulate recreational in-water interactions with marine wildlife. The document does not systematically address all situations, but provides a general overview of the measures that have been adopted or are recommended. CMS parties are encouraged to undertake relevant impact assessments and expert consultations to identify the most appropriate and effective way to adopt and adapt these guidelines to their specific local contexts. The guidelines in Annex 2 include general guiding principles and general guidelines, but also species-specific guidelines for cetaceans, sirenians, pinnipeds, marine turtles, sharks, mobilid rays, other fish, and seabirds. It complements the documents produced for COP12 and COP13 regarding boat-based marine wildlife watching, and the review of existing guidelines on recreational in-water interactions. Therefore, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft amendments to Resolution 12.16, to endorse the guidelines and to adopt the draft decisions. And the Aquatic Working Group has finished discussions on the resolution and the decisions, so CRP 27.3.1 is online, while discussion on the guidelines continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. So CRP is available for your consideration. Can I open the floor for any comments? If there are none, then we'll return to this in consideration of the CRP. Thank you for that. If we could move on then to, bear with me a second, 27.4.1, which is important marine mammal areas. And again, the Secretariat to introduce, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So introducing document 27.4.1 Rev 1 on IMAS, and this document was prepared by the Secretariat. It contains two annexes. Annex 1 has the report of the Marine Mammal Protected Areas Task Force of the IUCN Species Survival Commission and the World Commission on Protected Areas. And Annex 2 includes the draft decisions. The document also has an addendum where comments and recommendations of the Scientific Council are provided to the COP. IMAS are place-based conservation measures for aquatic mammals developed by the IUCN Marine Mammal Protected Areas Task Force. IMAs are identified through an expert-led region-based process, collating and assessing evidence against a set of selection criteria. The current work on IMAs related to CMS is led by the former COP-appointed Councillor for Aquatic Mammals, who is also the co-chair of the IUCN Marine Mammal Protected Areas Task Force. The collaboration has worked organically also through the considerable overlaps between the experts of the CMS Aquatic Mammals Working Group and participants of IMA workshops and implementation visits. Since COP13, 81 new IMAs have been identified, and an additional 22 CMS-listed species have been included in newly identified IMAs. In total, there are IMAs relevant to 39 CMS-listed species, which you can find in the document. Parties are encouraged to utilize IMAs in their national planning activities. And therefore, the COP is recommended to note the report of the Marine Mammal Protected Areas Task Force and to adopt the draft decisions. The Aquatic Working Group has finished discussions on the draft decisions, so please refer to CRP 27.4.1 on the meeting page. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Again, if I could open the floor for any comments. Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kingdom of Bahrain would like to congratulate and acknowledge the IMA's program's progress and adopted decision, and would like to suggest if could IMAs get further research on the Arabian Gulf and especially the area between Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain, where are the largest groups of dugongs in the world, and the largest colony of Socotra cormorants, and the place for many other CMS-listed species. This suggested research could be integrated with other conservation initiatives or programs to enhance their effectiveness, considering additional perspectives such as involvement of local communities, economic considerations, and enforcement and monitoring, etc. Bahrain would like to encourage parties to utilize the IMAs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bahrain. Could I go then to Egypt, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, we would like to support a statement already given by our colleague from Bahrain on the need to look at the marine mammals in the Arabian Gulf, because dugong are considered the second largest population of dugong in the world. And at the same time, certainly, we acknowledge and welcome the result, or shall we say, the draft resolution on that. In the Mediterranean, we have done a very, very good job in cooperation with ACBAMs and experts in the Middle East and the Mediterranean region as well, especially from Italy. And we have a system that already exists now on important marine mammals protected areas, and we are thinking seriously now to consider them as part of the new expansion of marine protected areas in Egypt to cover the 30% of the marine protected areas. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt, for that helpful update. Can I then go to whale and dolphin conservation, please?
Thank you, Chair. WDC strongly supports the adoption of the draft decisions with amendments as recommended by the Scientific Council and encourages parties to use the IMA dataset to inform marine spatial protection strategies for migratory marine mammal species. As a partner to the Marine Mammal Protected Areas Task Force, we would like to take this opportunity to remind delegates of Resolution 12.13, in which CMS parties were requested to support the IMA process. We commend those that have already come forward to do so financially, such as France and Germany, and strongly urge additional parties to assist with resources to support the IMA process. 70% of the global ocean has now been assessed for IMAs, and support from parties would enable identification workshops 70% of the global ocean has now been assessed for IMAs, and support from parties would enable identification workshops for the remaining unmapped regions, as well as additional implementation efforts. In addition, and to advance the IMA process, we would encourage parties to collaborate to deliver specific implementation projects, such as those underway in Kenya and Peru, by, at a minimum, engaging in the process and supporting resulting actions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, whale and dolphin conservation. Could I go finally then to ACOBAMS, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first IMA workshop was organized in 2016 by ACOBAMS and the IUCN Task Force, so there is a strong commitment by ACOBAMS to see this work proceed and cover the rest of the world. So we're very happy, and we would like to support the draft decisions in the document. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ACOBAMS. With that, then, there is a CRP available. We will come back to that item for approval in due course. So thank you for your input to that. Let me move on then to item 27.4.2, which is important shark and ray areas. And again, the Secretariat will introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish to introduce document 27.4.2 Rev 1 on important shark and ray areas, also known as ISRA. The document was prepared by the Secretariat and has already been discussed in the Aquatic Working Group. Today, a CRP is expected to be published soon on our website. The document contains 3 annexes. Annex 1 contains a draft resolution on ISRA, Annex 2 a set of draft decisions on ISRA, and Annex 3 contains a description of the criteria and the process for the identification of ISRAs, which had been developed by the Shark Specialist Group of the IUCN Species Survival Commission. The document also has an addendum where comments and recommendations to the COP provided by the Scientific Council are included. In summary, this document introduces the ISRA initiative, which is being led by the Shark Specialist Group of the IUCN Species Survival Commission. The initiative aims to delineate critical habitats for shark and ray populations globally. It was modeled after the important marine mammal areas approach and follows a standardized scientific criteria-based method engaging experts to propose and evaluate areas of importance. 3 assessment workshops have already been conducted, resulting in the identification of several ISRAs in the Central and South American Pacific region, the Mediterranean and the Black Seas region, as well as the Western Indian Ocean region. The document highlights the need for identifying and prioritizing marine areas for the conservation of sharks and rays on one of the most threatened groups of vertebrates. Put sharks on the map. The initiative aims to provide the best scientific knowledge to decision makers, allowing to implement Articles 2, Paragraph 1, and 3, Paragraph 4 of the Convention for Sharks and Rays by conserving habitats that are important for the survival of these species. This approach also aligns with the goal of conserving at least 30% of coastal and marine areas, the so-called 30 by 30 target set by the Global Biodiversity Framework. The document proposes a resolution and decisions to support ISRA and to take its results into account in marine spatial planning processes, such as deciding on the establishment of marine protected areas. The ISRA initiative has been endorsed by the signatories of the Memorandum of Understanding on the Conservation of Migratory Sharks at its 4th meeting in 2023 and has been recommended by the 6th meeting of the Sessional Committee of the Scientific Council for adoption. Thereby, in terms of actions, the Conference of Parties is recommended to adopt the draft resolution contained in Annex 1, the draft decisions in Annex 2, and note the criteria and the process for the identification of ISRA as contained in Annex 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretariat. Again, if I could open the floor for comment. Yes, Egypt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Egypt welcomed the draft decisions and also welcomed the new initiative that already mentioned now by Israelis, by the Secretariat as well, that already endorsed by the senators of the Shark MOU, which aim to identify and conserve critical habitats for sharks and ray populations based on scientific evidence. We also encourage all range states of CMS Sharks MOU that were not yet senators to consider signing the MOU during this important CMS COP14. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Egypt. I do know this is a developing area of science in terms of monitoring and knowledge, so it's very good to see the paper coming through the COP. If there are no more comments, then we'll receive the CRP in due course, and we'll return to it then. Thank you very much. Can we move on then to item 27.4.3, which is seagrass ecosystems, and again will be introduced by the Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, under the agenda item 27.4.3, I introduced the document on seagrass ecosystem. The document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Aquatic Working Group with minor changes, and the CRP will be available in due course. The document contains 2 annexes. Annex 1 contains the draft resolution on conservation and sustainable management of seagrass ecosystems, and Annex 2 contains draft decisions on the seagrass ecosystems. The document also has an addendum where the scientific council's comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. In summary, the document highlights the importance of seagrass ecosystems for migratory marine species, including marine turtles, sharks, dugongs, and many others, and recognizes the various ecosystem services that they provide, such as carbon sequestration, nutrient cycling, food security, world fisheries productivity, water quality enhancement, and coastal protection. The document highlights the undervaluation and underprotection of seagrasses despite their significance to migratory species, climate regulation, and food security. Global declines in the seagrass habitats are emphasized. It highlights the potential of seagrass ecosystem in carbon sequestration and storage, contributing to the goals of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change under the Paris Agreement, the Global Biodiversity Framework, especially Target 30 by 30 targets. Recognizing their transboundary nature, the annexed draft resolution and decisions on seagrass calls for conservation, sustainable management, and research in seagrass ecosystems, and importantly, a coordinated approach to seagrass conservation. Recommended actions, therefore, in terms of the actions, the Conference of Parties is recommended to adopt the draft resolution as contained in Annex 1 of this document and adopt the draft decisions as contained in the Annex 2 of this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. If I could open the floor for any comments. Again, there will be a CRP on this in due course. Yes, United Arab Emirates, please.
Thank you, Chair. The UAE commends the efforts detailed in document 27.4.3 to address the conservation and sustainable management of seagrass ecosystems. We recognize the vital role of seagrass meadows in supporting marine biodiversity, including numerous migratory species. In light of the proposed draft resolution and decisions aimed at conserving and sustainably managing seagrass ecosystem, we wish to highlight the 2030 Seagrass Breakthrough Initiative announced last year during UNFCCC COP14 in Dubai. This global initiative aims to establish a collaborative framework of action by state and non-state actors for the sustainable financing, protection, conservation, and restoration of seagrass ecosystems globally by 2030. The initiative underscores the intrinsic value of thriving seagrass ecosystems and their profound advantages in combating climate change, conserving biodiversity, fortifying disaster resilience, and advancing the attainment of sustainable development objectives. To further support this initiative, the UAE proposes the inclusion of a new text in the preamble of the draft resolution, emphasizing our collective commitment to seagrass ecosystem conservation in line with the international obligation and ambitions, which will be shared with the Secretariat. We believe that the inclusion of this text will strengthen the resolution by highlighting the importance of international collaboration and the role of innovative financing mechanisms in achieving our shared conservation goals. Thank you.
Thank you, United Arab Emirates. If I could go then to Bahrain, please.
Thank you, Chair. Bahrain would like to thank the Secretariat for the preparation of this document and for the preparation of a draft resolution which highlights the importance of seagrass ecosystems. In light of this, Bahrain supports the amendments proposed by the Scientific Council in Addendum 1 of document 27.4.3. These include text revisions to the draft resolution and decisions, which effectively captures the importance of seagrass ecosystems to migratory species and their vital role and functionality to seagrass ecosystems, as well as their potential as nature-based solutions to climate change. As such, Bahrain would also like to encourage parties to adopt the proposals made by the Scientific Council. Bahrain also welcomes the United Emirates' suggestion for the inclusion and integration of the 2030 Seagrass Breakthrough Initiative in the draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Bahrain. Let's go to Egypt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Egypt would like to thank Secretariat for presenting this very important document on the importance of the seagrass beds, seagrass ecosystems at large. In addition to that, Egypt strongly supports the statement given already by our colleague from UAE on the new initiatives, which we hope that such initiatives could be considered in the decision as well, because of its importance to the climate change. We also support the statement given by Bahrain and emphasize the economic values of seagrass ecosystems, not only in terms of the ecological or economic, but environmental as well, in a time that many of these ecosystems or seagrass beds that they provide refuges for many, many migratory species are declining almost every year, and more efforts needed to be done for conservation of seagrass ecosystems. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt. And then finally, can we go to Kenya, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kenya supports the adoption of the draft resolution in Annex 1 of this document on conservation and sustainable management of seagrass ecosystems that have been identified as important habitats for marine migratory species. Cognizant of the role seagrass ecosystems play in fisheries production, water quality, cultural benefits, buffering ocean acidification, and carbon sequestration in the advent of climate change, Kenya is committed to protection of important seagrass ecosystems for socio-economic development. Kibuyuni Seaweed Farming, a women-led initiative, is a classic example of women and community involvement in seagrass ecosystem conservation and management. It's also important to mention at this COP that Kenya developed a national conservation action plan for seagrass beds that is about to be reviewed and updated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kenya. Thank you, everyone, for your input. This is an important area in terms of the convention, and for me, it really typifies what can be seen as a high-nature, low-carbon solution, and one that I'm sure we will return to when we get the CRP in terms of our discussion. So thank you very much for your input to that. We have reached our lunchtime period in the agenda, and I've worked out now what's happening, in that the agenda is actually following the timing of my home country. So it is my lunchtime now, but I think we should probably carry on into consideration of marine mammals, which is item 27.5. So item 27.5.1 is conservation priorities for cetaceans and will be introduced by the Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates. As mentioned, I would like to introduce document 27.5.1, revision 1, on conservation priorities for cetaceans. This document was originally prepared by the Secretariat, but appears now as co-authored with the Scientific Council. As some of you will be aware, the Sessional Committee set up a correspondence working group on this document, which worked with the Secretariat to produce revision 1 that you see before you. The discussion on this document has taken place in the Aquatic Working Group during today's lunchtime session, so no CRP is available yet. A minor change was proposed to decision 14BB subparagraph B. The wording on deep-sea mining in the draft resolution has been square bracketed, awaiting the outcomes of the discussions within the Aquatic Working Group. The document reports on implementation of a number of COP14 decisions on various topics related to cetaceans, namely on activities relating to the Action Plan for Cetaceans in the Red Sea region, the Action Plan for the Protection and Conservation of South Atlantic whales, the role of cetaceans in ecosystem functioning, and last but not least, the Programme of Work for Cetaceans. This document contains 3 annexes. Annex 1 contains conservation recommendations for range states of specific cetacean species. Annex 2 contains a draft resolution, and Annex 3 draft decisions proposed for adoption. There are also 2 related information documents. Information document 27.5.1a is a review to support the development of a second CMS citation program of work and is the report that formed the basis for the development of the draft resolution and decisions before you. This review contained far more potential activities for the Scientific Council than can realistically be addressed in one triennium. Accordingly, it is proposed that the Scientific Council revisits the review to see which actions should be brought to the attention of future COPs for the following triennia. To assist in this, the Secretariat has compiled a list of future potential decisions in Information Document 27.5.1b, which is a compilation of recommendations that could be directed to the Scientific Council at COP14 and future COPs. The document also has an addendum where Scientific Council comment and recommendations to the COP are provided. They have already been included in revision 1 of the document before you. In summary, the draft resolution contained in Annex 2 of the document aims to be the one place which cross-references all relevant other resolutions and outlines activities of specific importance to cetaceans, which are a large and diverse taxonomic group affected by numerous threats. Therefore, in terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to note the reports and recommendations contained in the 2 information documents mentioned before, note the conservation recommendations for range states of specific cetacean species outlined in Annex 1 of the document, adopt the draft resolution contained in Annex 2 of the document, pending the finalization of the wording on deep-sea mining in the Aquatic Species Working Group. Adopt the draft decisions as contained in Annex 3 of this document, with a small change that will be reflected in the CRP. Delete decisions 13.80 to 13.85. And repeal Resolution 1015, Rev COP 12, Global Programme of Work for Cetaceans. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Again, I'll open the floor. There is a revised document on its way, but I'll take comments now. Yes, Egypt, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Egypt thanks the CMS Secretariat for the excellent documents that already presented to us. Therefore, we welcome the draft decision as well. We welcome the integrated cetacean conservation across governmental sectors that include priority areas as well, priority actions relating to bycatch, aquatic wild meat, marine debris, chemical pollution, marine noise, vessel strikes, live captures, and so on, and even local communities engagement as well. This may explain there is already overlap with other documents on other marine issues. We have noted this, and therefore we would like to raise the issue that have been in the agenda for many, many years now. I have personally done that to develop an action plan, or the Red Sea action plan, especially for the marine mammals as well, and establish a regional workshop. We hope that will be considered hopefully this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Egypt, and we note your comments in particular. Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair. My intervention will be brief. Brazil expresses its support for document 27.5.1, which is in line with our country's objective of promoting the conservation of the more than 50 species of cetaceans found in the South Atlantic, with particular attention to endangered species of migratory whales. We also would like to highlight that, considering that according to the document, the workshop to improve capacity for the implementation of the action plan for the protection and conservation of South Atlantic whales, as was provided for in Decision 1384, has not yet been held due to the lack of resources. And we sincerely hope that the Secretariat will prioritize its realization including fundraising in the next intersessional period. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Argentina, please.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Chair. And in line with what we've heard from Brazil, we believe that this document is extremely important for our region. And we wanted to thank the Secretariat for having prepared it. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. I don't see any other requests for the floor. There will be a CRP in due course, so we can return to this issue then for our approval at that stage. Thank you very much. Let's move on then to item 27.5.2, which is the Single Species Action Plan for the Atlantic Humpback Dolphin, and Secretariat will introduce.
Thank you, Chair. We are looking at revision 2 of document 27.5.2. This document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Aquatic Working Group also during today's lunchtime session, and no changes to the pre-session document were proposed. The mandate for the work presented in this document comes from Concerted Action 12.3 Rev COP14, which foresaw the development of an action plan for the species. We have 3 annexes in the document. Annex 1 contains a draft resolution. Annex 2 is presented as a separate file and contains the draft single species action plan to be annexed to and adopted through the resolution. Annex 3 contains draft decisions proposed for adoption. The document also has an addendum where the Scientific Council's supportive comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. There is also a related information document 27.5.2, which contains fact sheets on the Atlantic humpback dolphin in English, French, and Portuguese, developed by our important partner for the work on this species, the Consortium for the Conservation of the Atlantic Humpback Dolphin, or CCAHD. A first draft of the Single Species Action Plan in Annex 2 was developed by a group of consultants and was consulted on with range states in writing. This was followed by a one-day in-person meeting as part of the CMS Marine Megafauna Week last September in Senegal. Revision 2 of document 27.5.2 presents the draft agreed by range states in September. In terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft resolution contained in Annex 1 of the document, including the Single Species Action Plan, which is annexed to the resolution as currently Annex 2, and adopt the draft decisions contained in Annex 3 of this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. There's clearly been considerable work done on this issue over the intersessional period, so thank you for that. Could I open the floor for any comments? Yes, Senegal, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. As has been mentioned by the Secretariat, the last meeting, which ended with the consultation process on conservation of the Atlantic humpback dolphin, was held in Seli in Senegal and led to a declaration made by the states which took part in this meeting on the Marine Megafauna Week. We strongly support this resolution and action plan, and we urge the other parties to support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal, for that supporting statement. Benin, please.
Okay. Merci.
Thank you. As this is the first time we're taking the floor in this important assembly, I should like to take this opportunity to thank the government of Uzbekistan for the warm welcome we've received in this beautiful historical city. I would also like to thank and congratulate the Secretariat for all of the work undertaken. Indeed, in terms of the conservation of migratory species in particular and biodiversity conservation in general. Benin has played an important role in the development of this action plan. And I would like to echo what has been said by Senegal and call on the parties to this convention to adopt this plan of action so that we may all take part in conserving the Atlantic humpback dolphin. Thank you.
Thank you, Benin. I don't see any other calls for the floor. This document, as I understand it, is unamended from previous discussions in the working group, so we could seek your agreement to recommend it for adoption. Can I just clarify then, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt a draft resolution contained in Annex 1 to the document, including the SSAP, which is annexed to the resolution as Annex 2, and adopt the draft decisions contained in Annex 3 of this document. Are we content to do that? So we will recommend this for adoption. Thank you very much indeed. Done. Let's move on then to item 27.5.3, which is on sirenians, pinnipeds and otters, and is document 27.5.3 Rev 1, and the Secretariat will introduce. Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, it's me again. Document 27.5.3 is, we're looking at revision 1. It is a document prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on this document has also taken place during today's lunchtime session in the Aquatic Working Group, and so we don't have a CRP for you to look at yet. The working group proposed to accept the changes recommended by the Scientific Council in the addendum to the document and had no further comments to the proposed text. The document reports on implementation of a number of COP14 decisions on non-cetacean aquatic mammals, with the mandates stemming from the program of work on cetaceans and important marine mammal areas. We have one annex in the document which contains the draft decisions proposed for adoption. And as mentioned, the Scientific Council had some comments provided in the addendum which have been accepted by the Aquatic Working Group, so will appear in the CRP. The document provides a high-level overview of the CMS-listed sirenian, pinniped, and otter species. Some of them have not been subject to specific attention by CMS. A review of the conservation status of these species and the threats across their range was requested repeatedly since COP10 in 2011. Given the decreasing population trend for several of these species, assessing their conservation needs is now more urgent than ever. Recommendations based on these reviews would help to focus attention where it is most needed. Accordingly, in terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft decisions as contained in Annex 1 of this document, or then in the CRP you will see soon, and to delete the decisions 13.55, 13.56C, 13.81A and B, and 13.82A. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi, for that. We'll open the floor for any comments. There is a CRP on the way, so we will come back to this in due course, but I open the floor for any comments at this point. Yes, Egypt, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This document, or shall we say this decision, we welcome it as well, taking into consideration the previous interventions from UAE and Bahrain as well on the need for dugong populations in the Arabian Gulf and as well as in the Egyptian Red Sea as well. So we would like to take this further by calling for the action plan for the Red Sea dugong, which are declining dramatically over the last few years because of the human interventions, whether for seagrass beds, which are the main food for them, or for urbanizations that are taking place for many, many years as well. So we strongly support and welcome this decision, draft decision. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Egypt. Again, I don't see any other calls for the floor, so we will receive a CRP on this in due course and return to hopefully approve it. Thank you very much. Can we move on then to item 27.6, excuse me, on marine turtles, and 27.6.1 will again be introduced by Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We are looking at revision 1 of document 27.6.1 on marine turtles. This document too was prepared by the Secretariat, and it too was discussed in today's aquatic species working group's lunchtime session. We were very busy, so we don't have a CRP yet. The working group proposed to accept the changes recommended by the Scientific Council and made one minor additional change in decision 14.AA directed to parties, replacing the word requested with encouraged. The original document contains one annex with the draft decisions proposed for adoption, which will appear in a CRP soon. And it also has an addendum where the Scientific Council's supportive comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. There is a related information document, Information Document 27.6.1, which contains a draft report of an ongoing marine turtle legislative review for the Asia-Pacific region, prepared by WWF. It does not appear in the annotated agenda since it became ready for publication only once the latest version had already been posted online. The review described in the information document is partly in response to a mandate we will consider under the next agenda item on hawksbill turtles, but it is broader in scope both geographically and taxonomically, hence it has been associated with this agenda item. In summary, the document reports on the implementation of part of decision 13.70, which will, with the next agenda item considering the remaining mandate of this decision. It also cross-references to the bycatch document introduced by COP-appointed Councillor Barry Baker earlier. In terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft decisions as contained in the annex of the document and in the forthcoming CRP, and delete decisions 13.69 and 13.70. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. There is again a CRP on the way. Can I open the floor and see the Sea Turtle Convention, please?
Thank you, Chair. The Inter-American Sea Turtle Convention warmly welcomes document 27.6 on marine turtles. As this is the first time we've taken the floor, we would like to thank the government of Uzbekistan for welcoming us here. This is also our first time attending the CMS COP, and would also like to thank the Secretariat and the parties for ongoing collaboration with our convention with aims to conserve marine turtles in the Americas. We will be pleased to work with the CMS Scientific Council and our counterparts from IOCA MOU to, as detailed in draft decision 14BBA, assist in the review of scientific information on conservation and threats to marine turtles. We look forward to receiving further information about this and will be ready to collaborate on this work to improve the conservation status for marine turtles globally. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could then go to Egypt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In Egypt, we have 5 species of marine turtles. Egypt also is a member of the marine turtle MOU for the Indian Ocean and others as well. We have been monitoring marine turtles in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean for many, many years. And we keep calling to develop recommendations, including preservation of the current nesting beaches as well. Mr. Chair, the relationship between rising sea temperature and the sex ratio of turtles is being discussed now for several years in the context of climate change. Therefore, improved awareness of the breeding beaches is needed in many countries, including ours, but at the same time, conservation plans are also needed to be implemented as much as we can in the region as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt. If we could go to Senegal, please.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Chair. As you know, 6 of the 7 marine turtles globally are threatened due to a number of factors, including climatic and anthropogenic factors. During the megafauna days, which were held in Saly, Senegal, the 3rd meeting of parties discussed the conservation of marine turtles on the Atlantic coast. And the parties present updated the action plan associated with this topic. The action plan was adopted during the meeting of parties, which was held in Dakar in September. We align ourselves with this draft decision, which we strongly support, and we also urge other parties to adopt this draft decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senegal. And then to the Cook Islands, please.
Thank you, Chair. Cook Islands welcomes this document prepared for this meeting and commend the Secretariat for preparing the papers. We recognize the importance of marine turtles and appreciate the work undertaken to develop a single species action plan. As a range state, as defined under CMS Convention, we currently review our sea turtle action plan with the intention to include components of single species action plan.
Could you switch off the mics that you don't need, please?
On turtle population in the Cook Islands has been drafted and will inform the review and development of management measures for sea turtles. However, we do have an amendment to the document unit CMS COP14/doc.27.6.2/Annex 2 of the Single Species Action Plan for the Hawksbill turtle in Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific Ocean region, Section 3.2 of the document on regional and international legal and non-legal binding instruments and relevant bodies, page 13 of the document. Please note the Cook Island is not a party to the Ramsar Convention, and this should be corrected in the document. Although it is great to have a single species action plan, financial and technical assistance for national and regional
Cook Island, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're still on the previous item. I think you're maybe one ahead.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Okay. I'll come back to you first, though. Thank you. Can I go then to India, please?
Thank you, Chair. India recognizes the importance for the need for dedicated species conservation action for marine turtles by all marine turtle range countries. The role of the Scientific Council of CMS would be crucial in providing necessary technical advice to the parties that are in need for developing species-specific action plans. India has developed a marine turtle action plan for the year 2021 to 2026 and is currently under implementation. India is happy to engage with parties that may require support in developing marine turtle action plans. Identification of priority turtle nesting sites, affording these sites with necessary protection measures, habitat management interventions, and overall the involvement of people, especially the fishing community, are few amongst the essential activities for ensuring the survival of the species. Additionally, the forthcoming meeting of the IOSEA range countries scheduled in June this year in Dar es Salaam, United Republic of Tanzania, could be useful in discussing in detail on the next steps required for marine turtle conservation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, India. And finally, on this one, WWF, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us the floor. WWF would like to draw the party's attention to the associated information document 27.6.1, the Marine Turtle Legislative Review for the Asia-Pacific region. This review was initiated in 2023 and answers the call of CMS under Doc 27.6.2 Annex 2, Doc 27.6.1 Rev 1, Doc 27.1.1 Rev 1, and CITES Revolution Conf 19.5 to assess the status of national marine turtle legislation, aiming to inform parties, strengthen coordination, and harmonize legislation. The review provides a unique opportunity for parties to better understand each other's legislation, share responsibility for marine turtle conservation, and to close any gaps in marine turtle relevant policies at a national level. A survey was sent out to 51 countries and territories in the Asia-Pacific region in order to assess the legislation status, and we're delighted to say that responses from 22 countries and territories were received, which were used for the drafting of country profiles and to conduct a preliminary analysis, which already now yielded results that will be beneficial in informing marine turtle management. It is hoped that the remaining parties will join this initiative, fill in the survey, and review their country profiles, all of which have already been drafted for each of these 51 countries and territories, but still await approval. Parties can find the draft report at the CMS COP14 website as information document 27.6.1 and are encouraged to approach the WWF team if they have any questions on the topic. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, WWF. With that, then, there is a CRP on the way, so we'll come back to that when that's available later in the week. So thank you for that. Can we then move on to item 27.6.2, which is a single species action plan for the hawksbill turtle in Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific. And again, Secretariat to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce document 27.6.2, revision 1. Single Species Action Plan for the Hawksbill Turtle in Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific Ocean region. This document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Aquatic Working Group, also during today's lunchtime session, so no CRP is available yet. The working group proposed some changes and additions to the preamble of the draft resolution, one qualifier of as appropriate in operative paragraph 4, and some rewording of decision 14.AA subparagraph B, which you will find in the CRP when it is ready. The document reports on the implementation of decision 13.70C and presents as an outcome a single species action plan, which has already been adopted by 4 countries in June 2022, at the end of a multi-step consultation process involving written consultations, sub-regional online meetings, and finally an online plenary meeting for finalization and adoption of the single species action plan. Annex 1 of the document contains a draft resolution. Annex 2 is presented as a separate file and contains the single species action plan to be annexed to and adopted through the resolution. And Annex 3 contains draft decisions proposed for adoption. The document also has an addendum where Scientific Council's supportive comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. The Single Species Action Plan seeks to integrate the actions necessary to address trade and use, key threats to hawksbill turtle populations in the Southeast Asia and Western Pacific Ocean region, at both the domestic and the international level. In this way, it assists governments in implementing their commitments from numerous international agreements in a cohesive way. The Single Species Action Plan, as finalized by all range states present and adopted by the first 4 in June 2022, is now presented to CMS parties for adoption. Following this, it will also be tabled at the 9th meeting of signatory states to the IUCN Marine Turtle MOU in June of this year. Therefore, in terms of actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft resolution contained in Annex 1 of the document, including the action plan that is annexed to the resolution, currently Annex 2 of the document, and adopt the draft decisions contained in Annex 3 of the document. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. If I could go to the Cook Islands, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for jumping the agenda. Cook Island welcomes the documents prepared for this meeting and commend the Secretary for preparing the papers. We recognize the importance of marine turtles and appreciate the work undertaken to develop a single species action plan. As a range state, as defined under CMS Convention, we are currently reviewing our Sea Turtle Action Plan with the intention to include components of the Single Species Action Plan for hawksbill turtles. To assist this process, a risk assessment on turtle population in the Cook Islands has been drafted and will inform the review and development of management measures for sea turtles. However, we do have an amendment to the UNEP/CMS/COP14/document 27.6.2/Annex 2 of the Single Species Action Plan for the hawksbill turtle in Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific Ocean region, Section 3.2 of the document on regional and international legal and non-legal binding instruments and relevant bodies on page 13. To please note that the Cook Island is not a party to Ramsar Convention, and this should be corrected in the document. Although it is great to have a single species action plan, financial and technical assistance for national and regional projects to implement the action plan is key to its success, and we urge the parties and organization who is able to do so to provide financial and capacity support for the implementation of this important single species action plan. Last but not least, Chair, it will be difficult for the Cook Islands to nominate one national government representative and one national expert per range state to serve on the steering committee group due to staff capacity constraints. However, we wish to assure parties that Cook Islands will support the steering group wherever possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Let's move to Senegal, please.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. The hawksbill turtle, as you know, is critically endangered globally, and its conservation status is very concerning. In light of this, I believe it's important to support this draft resolution and draft decision. In fact, we could have expanded this action plan to a global level, as the threats to this species are not limited to these regions of the world, but to other regions too. Hawksbill turtles are very much threatened due to their beautiful to their beautiful scales, and they are very much at threat from poaching and other such activities. That is why we support this draft resolution and decision. In Senegal, we have already implemented a national action plan which covers this threatened species. It was approved in 2022, and we have been implementing it since then. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. Philippines, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the Philippines, as raised states of the IUC, welcomes the Single Species Action Plan for the hawksbill turtle in Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific Ocean region, and it strongly endorses its adoption, as definitely this will further advance the work under the Marine Turtle Conservation and Management Plan developed under the IUC MOU. Nonetheless, I wish to re-echo the call of our colleague from Cook Islands for the needed support to implement this single-species action plan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Philippines. And finally, Egypt, please.
Mr. Chair, although this proposed single-species action plan for hawksbill turtle, we actually strongly support the statement given by Senegal on the need for an action plan for global, at global level for hawksbill turtle, because they are present in many, many other regions all over the world, in seas and oceans. They are common in our country, especially in the Red Sea and the Mediterranean as well. Having said that, hawksbills are exposed to many, many, many threats, and that's why conservation plans for hawksbill turtles are strongly needed at all different levels. If it's not possible, maybe we can add to other regions as well, because we know this is very, very specific to Southeast Asia and Western Pacific Ocean region as well, but we can add other as well, other areas. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt. There is a CRP coming from the working group, so we will return to this issue when that's available for our deliberations. Thank you very much for your input to that item. Let's move on then to item 27.7 and 27.7.1, which is the single species action plan for the angel shark in the Mediterranean Sea. And again, Secretariat will introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to introduce document 27.71 on the single species action plan for the angel shark in the Mediterranean Sea region. This document was prepared by the Secretariat, and discussions will take place in the Aquatic Species Working Group, probably this evening. The document contains 3 annexes. Annex 1 contains the draft resolution to formally adopt the action plan. Annex 2 contains the draft single species action plan itself in a separate document. Annex 3 contains a set of draft decisions to guide implementation on the short term during the next triennium. The document also has an addendum which includes the recommendation of the Scientific Council to adopt the SSAP resolution and related decisions. The document emphasizes the necessity of urgent conservation action for the critically endangered angel shark, facing threats from incidental catch and habitat destruction. The single species action plan presented here supports the implementation of the species listing in Appendix 1 and 2, alongside the concerted action which was adopted at COP12 and thereafter extended at COP13. The action plan was prepared by the Advisory Committee of the Memorandum of Understanding on the Conservation of Migratory Sharks, the Sharks MOU. In this context, we specifically thank Dr. James Ellis and Marie Novaki for having volunteered expertise and time for the preparation of the first draft for consultation, and the expert from the Angel Shark Conservation Network, who have also provided significant support and expertise in the process. The action plan underwent online review by range states, receiving endorsement at the virtual meeting in 2022. Then, in 2023, signatories to the Sharks MOU endorsed the plan during the 4th meeting, committing to supporting actions through their program of work. We also thank the government of Monaco for having provided financial support to the Secretariat to manage the process. The draft resolution in Annex 1 aims to formally adopt the SSAP Angel Shark Med that is included in Annex 2. The SSAP was developed to guide Mediterranean range states in key activities for angel shark conservation. The plan is vital for CMS's role in coordinating conservation, emphasizing species-level protection, habitat identification, scientific studies, and resource allocation. The draft decisions directed to parties, non-party range states, IGOs, NGOs, and experts, as well as the Secretariat, include short and intermediate-term actions suggested to be undertaken during the coming triennium. This also includes the establishment of a governance structure and monitoring system. Therefore, in terms of action, the Conference of Parties is recommended to adopt a draft resolution contained in Annex 1, including the Single Species Action Plan for the angel shark in the Mediterranean in Annex 2, adopt the draft decisions contained in Annex 3 of this document. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretariat. Again, if I could open the floor for a comment. Yes, European Union, please.
Thank you very much. The EU and its member states welcome the work of the Advisory Committee and the Secretariat to develop the Single Species Action Plan for the angel shark in the Mediterranean Sea. We support the adoption of the draft resolution, including the Single Species Action Plan for the angel shark in the Mediterranean Sea and the draft decisions, with one minor amendment which we will suggest to the Secretariat in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, EU. Monaco, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. The Principality of Monaco would like to strongly and firmly thank the Secretariat for preparing this document and the draft decisions and the drafting of the action plan and the draft decisions. And we encourage other parties to approve this at the COP. We would also like to highlight the significant amount of progress that's been made on the subject on the conservation of the angel shark since it was listed in the CMS appendices at COP12. And we would also like to thank all the partners who have contributed to this progress with the aim of protecting the species. Thank you.
Thank you, Monaco. I see IUCN, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Chair. IUCN supports the adoption of the action plan for the angel shark in the Mediterranean Sea. The action plan was led by several members of the IUCN SSC Shark Specialist Group, in addition to the other regional shark experts who contributed to its drafting and review. Angel sharks are one of the most threatened families of elasmobranchs in the world. The angel shark is critically endangered according to the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species and requires urgent conservation action. Populations of this elusive shark have disappeared from most of the natural range, and the Mediterranean appears to be one of the last strongholds for the species. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, IUCN. I don't see any other requests for the floor. I think from Secretariat this item is still to be discussed in the working group, so we'll come back to it if there is a CRP in due course. Thank you, Secretariat, for that. Can we move on then to item 27.7.2, which is freshwater fish, including the European eel? And again, if the Secretariat could introduce, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to introduce document 27.7.2, Rev 1, on freshwater fish and the European eel. The document was prepared by the Secretariat and the Scientific Council. It contains an annex containing draft decisions. The section on the European eel carries over decisions from COP14 that were not able to be implemented earlier. These relate to the process to finalise and adopt a single species action plan for the species. The section on other freshwater fish responds to an issue that was added to the Scientific Council Programme of Work at the 5th meeting of the Sessional Committee in 2021. It asks the Scientific Council to review the conservation status of freshwater fish and provide recommendations for conservation action, especially given the large number of red list assessments of South American species completed in recent years. The draft decisions are contained in Annex 1, And I'd also just like to add that we received a useful information document, which has the same document number, so INF 27.7.2, from IUCN and NGOs, which analyzes the status of freshwater, of migratory freshwater fish. And as with the previous document, we're now ahead of the aquatic working group, and this will be discussed in that group this evening after we break.
Thank you, Secretariat. I'll open the floor for any comments at this point. European Union, please.
Thank you. The EU and its member states support the proposed draft decision with some amendments. The EU Action Plan to protect and restore marine ecosystems for sustainable and resilient fisheries includes critically endangered species that are commercially fished, such as the European eel. For such migratory species, the cooperation of all range states is essential. We therefore fully support the approach to develop an action plan for the European eel under CMS. We highlight also that there is growing evidence of the potential negative consequences of altered flow regimes on fluvial ecosystems and the fisheries that they support, including marine fisheries. And we would like to reflect that in the decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, European Union. If there are no other comments on this item at this time, I know it's a slippery issue and the environment for eels is changing rapidly, then we'll come back to it with the CRP once the working group have deliberated. Thank you very much, Secretariat. If we could then move on to item 27.7.3, implementation of the CMS Appendix 1 listing for the oceanic white-tipped shark, and I believe this will be introduced by a representative of the government of the Maldives. So Maldives, please.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to introduce this document on the implementation of the CMS Appendix 1 listing for the oceanic white-tipped shark. Oceanic white-tipped sharks are a highly vulnerable species, commonly taken as bycatch in global pelagic fisheries. This species is now assessed as critically endangered by the IUCN Red List. CMS parties agreed to list this species in CMS Appendix 1 due to concerns over the species' continued decline in populations and to improve protection and management of oceanic white-tipped sharks via a range of fisheries management, biodiversity conservation, and trade regulation at national, regional, and global scales. We also note that this species is also the only shark species for which retention is prohibited by the 4 major tuna regional fisheries management organizations. However, long-term genetic analysis of the shark fin trade and continuous seizures of illegal shipments indicate that despite these protections, oceanic white-tipped fins have remained in trade at comparable levels to 2014. The fact that this CMS Appendix 1 species remains in trade strongly indicates that global implementation of the Appendix 1 listing is inadequate. Given this, the Maldives believes further action is required. We originally prepared a concerted action for this species, which was considered by the Sessional Committee of the Scientific Council. We took note of the advice from the Sessional Committee to reframe the original proposal for concerted action as new draft decisions for parties to implement between CMS COP14 and COP15. We have set forward a series of draft decisions that will help improve the implementation of the CMS Appendix 1 listing for this species. We ask that parties support the adoption of these draft decisions to strengthen implementation of CMS listing for this critically endangered species. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Maldives, and thank you for your involvement in the conservation of the species more generally. I will open the floor for comments. I'm assuming this has not yet been discussed in the working group either. Yeah. If I could open the floor for comments. Yes, European Union, please.
Thank you very much. And speaking again on behalf of the EU and its member states, we welcome the work of the government of the Maldives to improve the implementation of the oceanic white-tipped shark CMS Appendix 1 listing. We noted with concern that the once highly abundant species is now critically endangered, and that despite actions made by regional fisheries management organizations to adopt strict management measures, the species is still subject to illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing and trade. In European waters, it is estimated that the species has declined by at least 50% for a 3-generation period, and therefore qualifying as endangered. We support the adoption of the draft decisions on the implementation of the CMS Appendix 1 listing for the oceanic white-tip shark with some amendments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, European Union, for that. Senegal, please.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. The oceanic white-tip shark is of particular interest to the two major conventions, both the CITES and CMS, because of its conservation status. It's important that we support these draft decisions presented by the government of the Maldives in order to improve the conservation status of this species. In CITES, it is also covered by significant matters, and there are harvesting quotas, as we've heard from the Maldives. It's important that we support these decisions to improve the conservation status of the species. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I see no more appeals for the floor. I think we'll allow the working group to work on that this evening, and we'll receive any CRP in due course. Thank you for that. Could we then move on from sharks to birds, and to item 28, avian species conservation issues, and then 28.1, which is the prevention of illegal killing, taking and trade of migratory birds, and Secretariat will introduce that. Secretariat, please. Yes, Ivan, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, under the agenda item 28.1, the Secretariat wishes to introduce the document, document 28.1, Rev 1, Prevention MICT, which was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Avian Working Group. This document contains two annexes. Annex 1 contains the proposed amendments to Resolution 11.16, Rev COP14, Prevention of Illegal Killing, Taking and Trade of Migratory Birds. The proposed amendments update the resolution, delegate the power to amend the scoreboard to members of the Intergovernmental Task Force on Illegal Killing, Taking and Trade of Migratory Birds in the Mediterranean MICT, rename the Intergovernmental Task Force on Illegal Hunting, Taking and Trade of Migratory Birds in East Asia and Australasian Flyway to Asia-Pacific Illegal Taking Task Force, and propose the establishment of a new Southwest Asia Task Force on Illegal Killing. Annex 2 contains draft decisions. There is also a related information document, document COP14 INF 28.1, which contains the scoreboard to assess the progress in combating illegal killing, taking and trade of wild birds, IKB, as it has been updated by the members of the Mediterranean Task Force, MICT, in 2022. The document has also an addendum where Scientific Council's general comments and recommendations to the COP are provided, suggesting 2 additional paragraphs to be added in the resolution and an amendment to a decision. In summary, the document reports on the CMS actions under Resolution 11.16, Rev COP13, and specifically the work of the MICT and the Asia-Pacific Task Force on illegal taking of migratory birds, and proposes the creation of a new task force on IKB. The document highlights actions to be taken to combat the illegal taking of migratory birds in the different regions of the world through the relevant task forces. Therefore, in terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft amendments to Resolution 11.16, Rev COP13, as contained in Annex 1, adopt the decisions contained in Annex 2 of this document, and delete decisions 13.27 to 13.33. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. Let me open the floor for any comments. Yeah, Kenya, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kenya supports adoption of the proposed changes to the decisions and text. Kenya, being a party to the convention, continues to collaborate with other range states to address illegal killing, taking and trade in migratory species through review and strict enforcement of national, international laws and policies to enhance penalties through a multi-stakeholder and relevant multilateral environmental agreements. Kenya has one of the most punitive penalties for illegal offtake of endangered species that include life imprisonment and or heavy fines. Kenya has built its capacity to prosecute, carry out forensic investigations, deployment of canine units, and controlling border points to stamp out illegal offtake of endangered species. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kenya, and I'm aware of the efforts that you're making to try to prevent any illegal killing and taking, so thank you for that. I see Australia and then Georgia. Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Australia thanks the Secretariat for the preparation of this item, and we were pleased to see so much progress has been made during the intersessional period to address the threat of illegal hunting, take and trade of migratory birds in our region. We were delighted to host the first meeting of the Intergovernmental Task Force on Illegal Hunting, Taking and Trade of Migratory Birds in the East Asian Australasian Flyway in Brisbane in 2023. The meeting provided a useful opportunity to join with the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership to develop a joint program of work. The actions in this program of work aim to strengthen the legislative framework and enforcement actions against wildlife crime, provide an opportunity to fill in many essential data gaps on hunting and other forms of taking of migratory birds, and improve communication pipelines between stakeholders for better collaboration at varying scales. Australia recognises the critical nature of this issue and have provided significant voluntary contributions to CMS to support the implementation of high-priority actions in the program of work. We look forward to working closely with the CMS Secretariat and the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership in making additional progress to address the issues of illegal hunting in our region.
Thank you, Australia. If we could go then to Georgia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Would like to congratulate the MIC task force with the progress made in collaboration with the Berne Convention, including successful implementation of the new scoreboard as a user-friendly national tool for self-assessment of progress on addressing illegal killing of birds. The tool not only proves to be an effective mechanism for evaluating the efficacy of various instruments, but also creates an opportunity to analyze the trends of illegal killing of birds in the region. The collaboration with the Berne Convention stands out as an efficient mechanism for broadening the task force reach and enhancing coordination among the parties of both conventions. We express our hope for the continuation of this collaboration, anticipating sustained progress and positive trends in the long term. We're looking forward for the 5th joint meeting of Berne Convention, SPFs, and CMS MICT on eradication of the illegal killing, taking, and trade of migratory birds to be held in 2024. In light of this, we express our support for the adoption of the proposed amendments to Resolution 11.16, Rev COP14, as outlined in Annex 1, along with the draft decisions presented in Annex 2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Georgia. If we could go to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair, I would like to, as we are the first time that we come while you are in the conference of the whole, so we would like to congratulate you and we're happy to see the Scottish accent already there in the hall. And we would like to thank the Secretariat for their work, and also related to the establishment of the starting the work in Southwest Asia, illegal killing and taking. The NCW, the authority of the Wildlife Authority in Saudi Arabia, was supporting this initiative since the beginning, since 2021, when we started with the Secretariat and BirdLife International, and we take this opportunity to thank BirdLife International and Secretariat for this, to starting this work. And in early this year, we had a workshop to establish the working group for the Southwest Asia illegal killing and take and trade. And we would like here to inform that the NCW Wildlife Authority in Saudi Arabia is committed to support this initiative through the coming few years. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your work in relation to preventing illegal killing and taking. I'm aware of the initiatives that you're involved in, and they're very impressive, so thank you for that. I think there are no more requests for the floor. I think, Secretariat, you want to make some comments?
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, just to say that in the introduction I mentioned that the document proposed amendments to update, including the capacity to delegate the power to amend the scoreboard to members of the task force, in this case of the Intergovernmental Task Force of the Mediterranean. But the discussion has already happened in the working group, and this has been changed and proposed to be under the standing committee. So just for adding clarity to the document that has been or will be produced soon. Thank you.
Thank you. So there will be a CRP coming on this in due course for our consideration. So thank you, Secretariat, for that point. Can we move on then to item 28.2, which is the Action Plan for Migratory Birds in the African-Eurasian region. Again, Secretariat to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, under the agenda item 28.2, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 28.2.
Could you please ask him to slow down a little bit?
Secretariats. The discussion on the document has taken place in the avian working group. This document contains two annexes. Annex 1 contains proposed amendments to Resolution 11.17, Rev COP14. Annex 2 contains draft decisions. The document also has an addendum where Scientific Council's comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. In summary, the document reports on progress to implement Resolution 11.17, Rev COP13, Action Plan for Migratory Landbirds in the African Eurasian Region, AMLAP, and related decisions 13.34 to 13.38. It includes proposed draft amendments to the resolution and draft decisions. The document highlights the activities carried out by the CMS Secretariat to implement Resolution 11.27, Rev COP13, and its related decisions. During this intersessional period, the program of work of the AMLAP has been updated and the membership of the working group renewed. Additionally, a coordination unit for the African Eurasian Migratory Landbird Working Group was established at the Swiss Ornithological Institute. This working group supported several activities linked to migratory landbird conservation in Africa and Eurasia. In terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft amendments to Resolution 11.17, Rep COP13, as contained in Annex 1 of this document, adopt the draft decisions as contained in Annex 2 of this document, and delete decisions 13.34 to 13.38. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. Again, if I could open the floor for any comments. Yes, Switzerland, then Kenya. Switzerland, please.
Switzerland supports document 28.2 on the action plan for migratory landbirds in the African Eurasian region in principle as it stands. And we would like to highlight the work of the Swiss Ornithological Institute, who took over the coordination of the working group to the action plan 20 in 2022. Thanks to their engagement, we are on the move and have already come far in implementing the AMLAP. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Switzerland, and thank you for your long-term support to these initiatives and to the work of CEMPAC, the Institute in particular, which is undoubtedly world-leading in terms of what they're doing. So thank you for that. Can we go to Kenya?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kenya supports adoption of the draft amendments to Resolution 11.17, Revision COP14, as contained in Annex 1, and also adoption of the draft decisions as contained in Annex 2 and the proposed amendment to the text. Kenya has finalized the development of a national single species action plan for the conservation of the gray-crowned crane 2024 to 2034 and has commenced implementation of the plan. Kenya is also working with Madagascar and other range states to develop an action plan for the Madagascar pond heron. The action plan responds directly to Kenya's obligations under the CMS and its family of instruments, such as the Africa-Eurasian Migratory Waterbirds Agreement, noting that the gray-crowned crane are found across their range in Africa, which extends from South Africa in the south to Uganda and Kenya in the north, and is described as an icon of Africa's wetlands and grasslands. Kenya will continue to collaborate with other range states on implementation of recommended actions and decisions to ensure the conservation of the migratory landbirds in the African Eurasian region. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kenya. Again, I don't see any other requests for the floor. I think this document will come back to us as a CRP in due course. Thank you for that. So we will return to that item in due course. Can we move on then to item 28.3, which is preventing poisoning of migratory land birds, and again, Secretariat to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates. Under agenda item 28, the Secretariat wishes to introduce the document 28.3, preventing poisoning of migratory birds. This document was prepared by the Secretariat, and the discussion of the document is taking place at the Avian Working Group. This document contains two annexes. Annex 1 contains the proposed amendment to Resolution 1115 Rev COP14, preventing poisoning of migratory birds. The proposed amendment suggests the continuation of the Preventing Poisoning Working Group and the continuation of the Intergovernmental Task Force on phasing out the use of lead ammunition and lead fishing weights. The current resolution includes the terms of reference of the Preventing Poisoning Working Group. Annex 2 of the document contains draft decision directed to parties, intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations, as well as to the Secretariat. The document has also an addendum where the Scientific Council's general comments are provided and suggested amendments are recommended to the COP. In summary, the document reports on the progress in implementing Resolution 1115 Rev COP13 and related decision 1339 and 1340, preventing poisoning of migratory birds. The Secretariat developed during the last 3 years the TOR for the Intergovernmental Task Force on phasing out the use of lead ammunition and lead fishing weight, called the Lead Task Force in brief. Because of no resources were available for it, it was not possible to hire a coordination for the Preventing Poisoning Working Group, organize workshops in high-risk areas or flyways, or to establish a coordination mechanism for the new Lead Task Force. Nevertheless, the Secretariat, working with many members of the Preventing Poisoning Working Group, contributed comments to the European Chemical Agency proposal to phase out lead gunshot for hunting, and to the similar process ongoing in the UK. It is important to support the continuation of the LED task force and to reflect the need of synergies with other CMS initiatives and intergovernmental effort on this matter, as well as highlight the advisory role of the expert of the preventing poisoning of wild working group. The recommended actions for the conference the party is to adopt the draft amendment of Resolution 1115 Rev COP14 contained in Annex 1 of the document, adopt the draft decision contained in the Annex 2, and to delete Decision 1339 and 1340. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Secretariat, for that introduction. I'm conscious of time. I wonder if I could ask the interpreters if we are all right to carry on for another 10 or 15 minutes if we need to.
We are fine. Russian translation.
Very much. Thank you. It may be me that's a limitation then, not the interpretation. Let me open the floor for comments in relation to preventing poisoning of migratory birds, document 28.3. Kenya, please.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. Kenya takes note of the diverse nature of the poison types contained in the Preventing Poisoning Working Group that affect migratory birds, and that they are not limited to lead poisoning. Kenya therefore supports the amendments to Resolution 11.15 Rev COP14 and deletion of 13.39 and 13.40 to address the diverse nature of the poison types contained in the working group guidelines as opposed to only lead poisoning. Kenya is among the states that have developed guidelines and protocols to enhance response to poisoning incidents and concurs with the observation of diverse nature of the poison types affecting migratory birds. The protocol for wildlife poisoning 2018 has continued to be updated based on emerging issues and has served well in responding to bird poisoning incidents. It is important to also mention here that Kenya's wildlife legislation outlaws poisoning of species and assigns heavy penalties against it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kenya. South Africa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. South Africa thanks the Secretariat for the work done so far on this agenda item. South Africa would like to join Kenya in supporting the proposals. In this case, the transition to non-toxic and fishing weights is recognized as the priority for South Africa. More and more research confirms that lead exposure is a significant risk to migratory and non-migratory wildlife. South Africa therefore supports the adoption of an updated resolution text and new decision on this topic. However, the draft text and the amendment to Resolution 1115, Rev COP13, needs further refinement before being adopted. South Africa would like to emphasize that availability and affordability of lead-free ammunition and fishing weight continues to impede the transition to these alternatives in some countries, including South Africa. In this regard, South Africa encourages CMS parties to actively facilitate and support the development and availability of expanded product ranges of non-toxic alternatives, especially in those countries that are only at the start of this transition. South Africa additionally notes with concern that the coordination has not yet been appointed of the Intergovernmental Task Force on phasing out the use of lead ammunition and the lead fishing weights. And that is the task force has not held its first meeting. In principle, the task force will provide a much needed platform for CMS parties and other stakeholders to share approaches, lessons, and ideas for achieving this important objective. South Africa views The task force operationalized as a high priority and would like it to be considered into the budget negotiation. In addition, in this regard, South Africa has submitted the amendments to the text to the Secretariat for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, South Africa. Last comment on this item then to BirdLife International, please.
Thank you, Chair. BirdLife echoes the concerns expressed just now by the Secretariat and South Africa about the lack of progress made with respect to getting the lead task force up and running, which was established at the last COP, COP14. We call on parties and stakeholders to support the Secretariat in advancing the work of this task force during the upcoming triennium, as this will be critical for advancing the delivery of existing mandates related to lead poisoning. Thank you.
Thank you, BirdLife. Again, I don't see any more requests for the floor. This item is still undergoing discussion in the working group, I believe, so we will return to it in due course when the papers arrive back here. Thank you very much. Can I move on then briefly to item 28.4.1, which is the flyways, and to be introduced by Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, under the agenda item 28.4.1, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 28.4.1 Ref 1, Flyways. This document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document is taking place in the Avian Working Group. This document contains two annexes. Annex 1 contains proposed amendments to Resolution 12.11, Ref COP13, and Annex 2 contains draft decisions. The document also has an addendum where Scientific Council's comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. In summary, the document reports on progress on implementing Resolution 12.11, Ref COP13, Flyways, Resolution 12.25, promoting conservation of critical intertidal and other coastal habitats for migratory species, and decisions 13.41 to 13.46 flyways. It also includes proposed draft amendments to Resolution 12.11 and draft decisions. The document highlights the activities carried out to implement the program of work on migratory birds and flyways, and also the strategic review of all CMS flyways relevant documents, working groups, task forces, and other instruments carried out by the Secretariat. The findings of such review were discussed by the Flyways Working Group, and also reports on the progress against Decision 13.46A to further advance on the establishment of an institutional framework for the Central Asian Flyway. Additionally, the document reports progress to implement Resolution 12.25, where the Secretariat has acted as an observer on the process to launch the World Coastal Forum. Therefore, in terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft amendments to Resolution 12.11, Ref COP13, as contained in Annex 1 of this document, adopt the draft decisions as contained in Annex 2 of this document, and delete Decision 13.41 to 13.46. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. If I could open the floor for any comments. The document is still under discussion in the working group, and we will receive the revised documents in due course. Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. We wish to thank the Secretariat for this item. Australia supports the document and is pleased with the progress made in implementing this resolution through our involvement in the East Asian Australasian Flyway. Australia looks forward to strengthening the synergies between the CMS and the East Asian Australasian Flyway partnership during the intersessional period, for example, through the Hunting Task Force and the CMS Energy Task Force. We look forward to contributing to a revised Flyways program of work and see several opportunities to enhance the work in the East Asian Australasian Flyway and the West Pacific Flyway, in particular in relation to land birds, raptors and seabirds in the East Asian Pacific region.
Thank you, Australia. Again, I don't see any other requests for the floor, so the working group will continue its deliberations on this issue and that will come back to us. If we can move on then to the final one of today, which is item 28.4.2, Initiatives for Central Asian Flyway. And I'm delighted to ask a representative of the Government of India to introduce the document. India, please.
Thank you, Chair. India would like to propose the document 28.4.2 regarding a new initiative of the Central Asian Flyway. The Conference of Parties at its 13th meeting at Gandhinagar in 2020 adopted decision 13.46, which requested range states of the CAF region to collaborate with the Government of India and the secretariats of CMS and AWA during the intersessional period between COP13 and COP14 to advance the processes initiated to establish, under the umbrella of the CMS, an institutional framework under the leadership of India and in consultation with other range states and relevant stakeholders. This institutional framework is aimed to agree on the conservation priorities and take measures to support range countries with the implementation of conservation actions for migratory birds and their habitats in the region, including promoting research, studies, assessments, capacity building, and conservation initiatives, thereby further strengthening implementation of the CMS and its avian-related instruments. The document 28.4.2 proposed by India consists of two annexures. Annexure 1 consists of the draft resolution to the initiative of the Central Asian Flyway, along with the terms and reference for this new initiative. Annexure 2 contains the draft decisions. India has continued its efforts to advance the process regarding the Central Asian Flyway. A meeting of the CAF range states was organized in October 21, followed by several coordination meetings between the CMS Secretariat and the Government of India to work out an institutional framework for the CAF. The fourth meeting of the CAF range states was held in person from the 2nd to 4th May of 2023 in New Delhi, wherein Armenia, Bangladesh, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Kuwait, Mongolia, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan participated, and the initiative for the Central Asian Flyway proposed by India was agreed. Chair, the new initiative aims to establish a secretariat or a coordination unit under the umbrella to be hosted by India, and with the objective to enhance the conservation and protection of migratory bird populations across the CAF, as well as sustainable management of the habitats through strengthening coordination and cooperation across parties and non-parties in the CAF region and beyond, including other frameworks, instruments, and partnerships. The initiative of the Central Asian Flyway would be an instrument aimed at increasing the scientific and technical expertise in the region, broadly addressing the conservation priorities identified and monitoring the effectiveness of the interventions. The initiative will also develop the capacity of the range states to develop, identify, and implement internationally agreed conservation strategies of threatened populations of migratory birds in the CAF region and take measures that allow and secure ecological connectivity of the populations. Accordingly, the recommended actions are: A, adopt the draft resolution contained at Annexure 1 of this document. B, adopt draft decision contained in Annexure 2 of this document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, India, and indeed thank you for your support in developing this initiative. I attended the Gandhinagar COP, which was a spectacular event, and this is a very good way to follow through that leadership into the current COP as well. So thank you for that. Can I open the floor for any interventions? And I've got Bangladesh and then WWF. Bangladesh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Bangladesh supports the initiative for Central Asian Flyway and their implementation proposed by India. Bangladesh is working to investigate the connectivity of two flyways, East Asia Australasian Flyway and Central Asian Flyway, through satellite tagging of long-distance migratory birds in collaboration with the IUC and Bangladesh. We also look forward to working with governments and other stakeholders in Central Asia on this Flyway initiative. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bangladesh. Then WWF, please.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. The Worldwide Fund for Nature welcomes the initiative of Central Asian Flyway. WWF, with our country offices within the Flyway range and beyond, would like to state our support for the initiative of Central Asian Flyway on the conservation of migratory birds and their habitat in this flyway. The initiative will not only serve as an important platform for collaboration among countries along the flyway, but will also protect and restore wetlands, which are stepping stone corridors for birds along their migratory routes, and provide essential ecosystem services of our people, including water, food, and nature buffers against the impacts of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, WWF. I don't see any, yes, I do. BirdLife, I thought you had flown off, but you've flown back again. So BirdLife International.
Thank you, Chair. BirdLife would like to take this opportunity to thank the Government of India for their greatly appreciated leadership in establishing the long-longed-for institutional framework to facilitate the concerted cooperative conservation of the birds of the Central Asian Flyway, thereby filling the main global gap in coverage of such flyway conservation. We also thank the CMS Secretariat for all the work they've put into getting us to this stage. The BirdLife Partnership stands ready to support India and the other 29 range states of the CAF. Our commitment is demonstrated by our production of the first ever Central Asian Flyway situation analysis, presenting information to underpin the work of the new Central Asian Flyway Initiative and available as a COP14 Inf Doc 28.4.2. It is also demonstrated by the fact that 12 national BirdLife partners engaged in bird conservation work in the CAF are attending this COP to witness this historic birth of the CAF initiative and to run or present in some 6 relevant side events. We look forward to sharing our technical, practical, policy, capacity building, communications and resource mobilization expertise as the CAF initiative moves into implementation mode. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, BirdLife, and indeed your involvement and support has been instrumental to many agreements that have been developed over the years, so thank you for that. And then finally, I see Uzbekistan, and then we'll close after that. Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, if the mic isn't working, you could possibly try and move into another location. It looks to me like it is working, but it sometimes takes a few moments. Yeah, just on the tech side, it's located down at Bangladesh's desk if there's any technological fix you can do. I think, Uzbekistan, I think your own desk is highlighted in terms of microphones. Yeah, tech people, if you could turn on the Bangladesh microphone, please. That's where Uzbekistan is currently located. I think you're on now. Great.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome all once again to historic Samarkand. We are fully support proposed document by India. Uzbekistan was host of the first range state meeting in August 2001, based on which the Central Asian Flyway Action Plan. for migratory waterbirds with agreed priorities was developed under CMS. The development and discussions on the mechanism to progress, it was undertaken at a series of meetings kindly hosted by India and UAE. As host of COP14, Uzbekistan would strongly encourage parties to consider and strongly support the establishment of the innovative initiative for the Central Asian Flyway that provides a unique opportunity and flyway scale platform to synergize and support implementation of several important CMS and non-CMS instruments, and initiatives to conserve over 600 species of migratory birds, including birds of prey, water birds, and land birds with over 40 globally threatened species that depend on a wide range of habitat working with CMS parties, non-CMS parties, and a range of other stakeholders and partners. As a remark, CAF is the shortest flyway in the world, and the wintering places of species are located in the northern arid areas, where climate change has direct and sometimes extreme conditions. Therefore, only so the efforts of all countries in the region will we be able to realize and to promptly receive information about ongoing changes in the population size of migratory species. This is important for conservation measures and for planning the rational use of biological resources of migratory species. Thank you.
Thank you, Uzbekistan, and indeed thank you for hosting us here in this wonderful conference. Thank you all for these interventions. There will be, the paper will still be considered in the working group and will return to us in due course. So thank you for that. Remarkably, that brings us to the conclusion of the agenda for the afternoon. Really well done, and thank you to all of you for all your support. Could I hand to the Secretariat for some very short announcements? Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. Just a reminder that all our working groups are meeting as soon as you can get to the relevant rooms. With respect to the Institutional and Cross-Cutting Issues Working Group, it plans to take up document 30.4.3 on wildlife health, document 26 on vagrant species, and document 24 on the review mechanism and national legislation program, and time permitting, revisit the documents discussed yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. It has been a really busy day, so once again, thank you all for your input through the various agenda items. You can relax a sense and consider how you spent Valentine's Day. It's been a wonderful way to spend the day. You have helped the world enormously. You may not have helped any other relationship that's involved in Valentine's Day. But with that, thank you very much, and we'll reconvene here at 9:30 this morning. There will be a Bureau meeting immediately after this meeting just now. Thank you all very much. Could I thank also the interpreters for that extra little half hour? It's made a big difference. Thank you.